are we actually getting as the rewards over the time, so like over how many number of
I need
matches
my
you're
glasses
playing.
today.
And it just the numbers
playing.
it didn't feel right to us in terms of how much time players
Times
were
it for me.
taking.
2 p.m.
So we ended up kind of I would say tripling the
I went to bed at
overall
7:30 and woke
values.
up at 11.
And so by doing the different segments and thresholds for different grades, I think it ends up looking even much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably
Hey,
worth
Chase,
noting
thanks for
there
the
as
8
well,
months.
just because I saw it in chat. It's 2 million, right? If you get Iridescent in both,
Exactly.
that goes past the cap. So there is the million point blood point cap. If you get that 2 million, it's going to go past the cap. Can't earn any more after you pass there, so spend it. But don't panic that you're not going to get those points.
Wasn't that already the case,
Yeah,
though?
I think any BP we give you as gifts or rewards that let's say you
I guess
don't
they're just
have
telling
control in collecting,
everybody that
they're
that's the
always going
case.
to go past the cap. Don't worry about it.
Thanks, Vlad. Thanks for the 4 months.
All right.
Appreciate
One
that.
last thing we got to touch upon before we start the Q&A. There's a blood rush going on right now. It ends tomorrow at 11 a.m. So play some games, get some points.
Good hard set. That's an minutes.
Before we start, I just want to say we get these questions from Twitter and
Thanks,
the forums. These are the most upvoted questions. So if you're wondering how we pick them, that's how. So
thanks, W. Thanks, Leon.
First question is from Kiss My Mutton. And they ask, will there ever be base kit borrow time or decisive strike to address tunneling and camping?
Jeez, that would be huge.
We have no plans to make decisive strike base kit.
Yeah.
Okay. I noticed you only mentioned decisive strike there. Do we have anything at all planned for base kit?
We have no plans to make decisive strike base kit.
Okay. People are definitely going to pick that apart, but you know what? Good enough. So the next question
It seemed like he was
from,
hinting at
MX
that BT
Zen,
would be base kit.
who asks, when's Switch cross progression coming?
Or some type of
I think
mechanic.
this one's definitely popping up a lot.
That's the kind of thing that they
good that,
need to
we
like
can be addressing
address,
it.
but they
So
need to
we put out
balance
a
the game
statement a few
around it,
months
you know?
ago,
They would need to make Killer
but
Strong to compensate
with
for the
all
free
the
perk.
technical
But
aspects
it's a good
beyond our
idea, but they need
control,
to
transferring
do stuff
TLC
with it.
between platforms has not really been possible. So we're aiming to deliver the best, most consistent cross progression experience we can. So unfortunately, we're not able to provide a clear ETA on
Yeah,
when
it's
we can actually
interesting.
expect it for the
I do
Switch.
think like having
We're
a
still
base
trying
kit
to get
bar
things
time is
sorted
a
out,
cool idea, but you
and
need
as
to
soon as we
balance the
have
game
a more
around that being the
concrete
case.
date to share,
I think anything
we're
that
certainly gonna let you guys know.
de-incentivizes the least fun parts about the game, which is, you know, gen rushing and tunneling and camping, stuff like that, is good. But you need to balance the game around it.
Is console cross progression coming?
I agree. It's stupid to fix gameplay
Yeah, so I
issues with
think
perks.
this
That would
one
be
makes
them
total sense
making it a
as
base
follow-up,
mechanic
'cause once
instead.
you
And
have
then,
it on
like
one
I said,
console,
you still have to
then
balance the
question is,
game
well,
around it, though.
when's
That's
on
very
the rest?
important. You can't just give everyone borrowed time for free and then just call it a
It's
day.
gonna be, I'd say, similar restriction. So it's not for the time being. It's still something we really want to do. Like we all play, a lot of us have Switches, PS4s, PS5s, Xboxes, and we'd love to be able to play on all of them. It's just
Decisive
not
strike
something that
base
we
kit
can
would
promise
be
because it's
unfair.
not
I agree.
solely
I think borrowed
our
time's
decision.
slightly more manageable to balance the
Anything
game around.
involving cross-play, cross-progression, it's
75%
a
of big
lot
circle healing
a
nerf.
lot of
Nah,
gears
not really.
moving
No,
at the same
it's
time. So
still
it's just it
extremely
takes
good.
time to get it working.
Yeah, absolutely. Switching gears, we have a question from the King, who asks, will Boon Totems be getting any changes? I can't read.
Sorry, words are hard, buddy. Yeah, Boon Totems and their general mechanics aren't going to see any sweeping changes anytime soon. They're generally working as intended. They don't show, any significant signs of being overpowered or a problem. Again, overall. That said, I already talked about, Circle of Healing, right? And in that same vein, we are looking at each individual boon perk and, considering their individual balance. But boons, the overall system,
Well,
it's not going to see any major changes.
We're all memeing at him, but I can kind of agree with him. I think boons in general aren't necessarily OP. It's just Circle of Healing that's ridiculous. Like, no one's bitching about exponential. It's a good perk, but it's not overpowered. It's just Circle of Healing that's way too strong.
I'll just put it on screen.
You guys can meme him all you want, but it really is just Circle of Healing.
I wish my teammates would hen rush.
Except Twins mains, yeah. But we don't care about them. Hey, Pepe Sylvia, thanks.
There you go. Next question comes from Deadly Cobra, who asks,
Jinjins? Yeah, I got a
fix the
stomach
issue
ache.
of dead hard validation having adverse effects on certain killers' powers?
Please address this.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we have to look at on a case-by-case basis with each power, so it's a little bit slow going. They're all on our radar, though. We are listening to what you guys are saying and calling these issues out. Very specifically, I can say things like the Blight's Rush attack and the Nemesis Tentacle attack and how those interface with Dead Hard. It's not as good as we want it to be, so we're looking at those individually, but yeah, case-by-case basis for stuff like that.
Slow for behavior. Yeah, that's not a good sign.
Very similar follow-up
Hey,
question.
Shark.
I don't know if I can say this name on stream, but I'm going to say it anyway. Humperdinker asks, Hex Ruin was reworked because most killers used it in almost every match. Will Dead Hard be reworked?
Praise the sun. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we are looking at Dead Hard, right? It's a particularly tricky one because some of the friction with this perk comes from the design, and some of it comes from the network and the technical implementation. Anytime you have something that's extremely time sensitive, I can't speak either, in an online game, like reacting and dodging a hit, you end up with something that can be negatively impacted by latency, network conditions, stuff like that. So we need to come at Dead Hard from both the design side and from the technical side. But that also means it's gonna take a while to kind of unravel it and get it to a place that everybody is happy with.
As loud as it can go.
I already see there's some people happy in chat about that. I guess the other question is, what aspect of Dead Hard are we really thinking about changing? Are we thinking about changing the way people use it for distance, or are we thinking more about
totally, guys. Sure, that's 25%.
the way people use it to dodge a hit?
It's totally dead.
Yeah, I mean, on the technical side, we're definitely looking at the hit dodging, how that functions, how the players experience it, how you get feedback, right? How you know that that hit got dodged, stuff like that. There's already some changes coming, I believe, in the upcoming patch. Touching on the validation of it. It was in the PTB. From a game design side, we're definitely looking at it specifically in regards to the speed boost and how that can activate regardless of you dodging a hit. You know, it gives it a little bit too much utility beyond what we want Dead Hard to do. So that's another aspect. I don't have anything specific to say about what we're doing there, but those are like the high level aspects that we're investigating right now.
All right, exciting stuff.
At least they're aware of it, I guess.
Next question comes from Ots Darva, who asks, streamer mode, perk loadout saving, more settings in custom games. Can we expect these quality of life changes anytime soon?
Good question.
So some of these are definitely coming sooner than later. I don't want to give too much hope on when, but like we're looking at a laundry list of these and some similar quality of life features for the future, and should have more to reveal in the near to mid future, I'll say.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the classic
so
Q&A
Chris
answer.
asks, what happened to the early game mechanic you announced in the 4th anniversary stream?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this one last time we were on a Q&A, but I'll repeat it so you know, everybody gets to know.
I think
it's not a secret. The short answer is that it's not going to happen. We're not doing it. The longer answer, which I will still keep relatively brief, is that you know, we talked about adding an additional mechanic to the start of the game, but after discussions internally with the design team and going through a few prototypes, there wasn't any direct improvements to the game. It actually made it worse. People weren't having fun. It was frustrating. So we kind of scrapped the idea. It wasn't a good idea based off of our playtest.
Who was having a worse time?
Some of those ideas have been recycled into other prototypes.
Because the killer's not going to have a worse time.
There will be something. You know, there's more. We are prototyping more things, just not an early game scenario like people have been talking about.
Yeah, the sad reality to sharing things sooner like that is that sometimes they don't make the cut.
Exactly.
So it's a big part of the reason why we don't give ETAs super early on. Next question comes from
people weren't having fun. Yeah, that just means the survivors weren't having. Just at least just say survivors weren't having fun with it.
Not based on kills and escapes. I know you could talk about this all day, so I'm going to cut you off if it goes too long.
Yeah, I've got some notes here, but I'm desperately trying to keep it brief. So I'll please understand I am simplifying some things here. Don't read too much into every detail I'm saying. I'm trying to keep this brief. But there's a common misconception that by using just kills and escapes to adjust your MMR, it's ignoring skill in the game. This isn't the truth, though. This is false. Kills and escapes are proxies for skill, in that skilled play inherently leads to kills or escapes.
Incorrect.
Think about sports, and I'll use hockey as an example because I'm Canadian.
Completely wrong.
You wouldn't say they only count wins.
I can't even express how wrong that is.
But they should also count shots on goal too. A more skilled player takes more shots, and while that's certainly true, it's important to remember that shots lead to goals, which lead to wins. So you can kind of cut the middleman out there.
God, I can make a whole video on dismantling that parallel argument.
Really skilled plays, right? If your skilled play doesn't get you to win, was it really a skilled play in the first place?
That was a really bad analogy,
leads to the same place in DBD. Killing survivors or the survivors escaping alive. That's what MMR predicts: the chances of the killer killing survivors or them escaping alive. And it is actually very good at doing that.
No, it's
However,
not.
we're looking at some improvements to the current system. An example to take is to take team results into account for survivors in addition to the personal results. This takes some time. We have to iterate on. There's lots of fun math, which I could again talk about forever. But we need to prove it out that it's working, that there's value in it, and correlations,
Thank you,
so on. More details on that more details on skill-based matchmaking in general are actually in our last dev blog post as well.
Okay, we have a similar question, not directly similar, but pretty close, from Jeff Philippe, who asks, why don't hooks count towards your rating?
Great question.
Yeah, this is a great example of what I was just talking about a minute ago, in a specific case that we did consider and look at and think about quite a bit. The thing with counting hooks is that you end up with weird cases that don't make sense when you take it to its extremes. Say you're a killer who hooked every survivor twice, but none of them died. If you count those hooks towards your rating, then you can easily end up in a situation where that scenario counts as a win, like moves you up the standings.
It should count as a win.
But that feels weird. Did you really win? Should your rating go up and make you face stronger opponents, even though
get 9 hooks,
all of the survivors got out alive? Probably not, right? That's like an obvious moment of like,
no, it's
it doesn't really
it's
compute.
the opposite
it also
is
doesn't
obvious,
make sense for the survivors. If you call that a killer win, that would mean the survivors lost. But they all got out alive, so that feels weird to call that a loss on the survivor side.
What if the killer's
Unless
AFK?
You start saying that everybody in that situation wins, and then as soon as you can have everybody in a game winning, you get some really weird math, some really crazy stuff starts happening really, really fast. So that's part of why we boil it down to kills and escapes as a proxy for good play in the game. It solves all those problems, and it solves a whole bunch of other ones that I'm just not going to get into now because I think we have like 1 or 2 other questions to get into.
Yeah, one of the trickiest parts of a system like this is that you
usually
need to
I'm like,
win and loss.
I tried to like humanize them and make them like I try to defend them as much as possible. That was just
and then eventually the matchmaking system can't really give you a match because everyone's
so bad,
like some astronomical rating. Okay, so getting into a completely different question, we have a question from Pulsar, who asks, when is 60 FPS coming to Xbox One, PS4, and low-end PCs, as promised in this
Don't humanize them, they don't deserve it. See, I think that's equally fucked up as to what like he's saying.
This is a very fun elephant in the room.
You can't do that either, dude.
I would say.
They're still people.
So I think we all agreed
Christ.
that roadmap was a little too ambitious and we weren't able to make it happen yet. Because that being said, we're still working on tons of optimizations. So the following notes that I have are a little more from the tech team, so I'm just going to read it very verbatim. So basically, to hit 60 FPS, both the GPU and the CPU frame times need to be below 16 milliseconds. The good news is on the GPU side, we're already below that threshold. Now we just need to work on the CPU side of things. So in 2021, our efforts were focused on converting the old blueprint code to C++ and preventing things from happening off-screen when they're not needed. So this dropped the CPU
if it's all about kills, why would you depip for camping all of them on hook and killing them all for folks we get rewarded by SBM? So this their pip system is immediately disagreeing with what he just said. Now granted, they don't technically use that for ranking anymore, but that still was better. Like, for those of you who don't know, if you got, what was it? It was 2 hooks and 1, no, I'm sorry, 2 kills and 1 additional hook would give you a pip, right? I think that's a far better measurement of how well you did in the match, rather than just looking at just how many kills you got. Because that was a bit harder to actually get.
Yeah, and I don't know how to even begin explaining what async loading into the match means, but someone much smarter than me is working on that.
Yeah.
Async loading into the match. You're not synchronized loading into the match. Someone can move earlier. Peanuts, please. That wasn't that complicated.
Higher frame rate can opt into that. So why don't we
be a programmer to figure that out, man?
Because those settings have more of an effect on the GPU side of things than the CPU side of things. So even if you did opt into those lower graphic settings, your frame rate will change. So we're working on fixing that, but we don't have an ETA just yet. The next question comes from a lot of different people. Hidden Blade, Lexicat, Jimbo Mason, and Iana Bean. They all ask, are there any changes underway for Bloodweb to reduce the grind for perks?
Yeah, I mean, we've known that the grind is a big issue in DBD, and we know it is right now. It's not much fun. It's not much fun. It's a pretty big grind. We're working on a way to dramatically improve this, and we'll hopefully have more to say about it soon, but not right now. I know everybody loves that answer.
Yeah. One thing that we've seen people ask is if the grade rewards are like a band-aid solution to that. They're not. We're not looking at that as a solution to the grind. That's just an increase to the grade rewards, nothing more.
That's good.
We have a related question from Astrian, who asks, can we please have perk tiers removed?
Good question. Straight up, we've got no plans to remove perk tiers. It is a topic that we talk about internally. It's an idea that gets thrown around, but we have no plans to do it right now.
Yeah, we have something else in mind, but not removing perk tiers. Two quick things about perk tiers. Yes, it would cut the grind in 2/3, but the grind grows exponentially every time new content is added. Not only are we adding new perks to unlock, but we're also adding more characters to unlock those perks on. So if we were to do so, it would only be a matter of time before that grind becomes a problem again. The second thing,
but you'd be cutting 66% of the grind out,
deleting them,
which is huge.
So if we're going to spend a bunch of time
and
on
as you increase the amount of content, it's still a 66% ratio of reduction. You can add 100 more killers, it's still 66% reduced.
Next question we have is from Pixel Bush, who asks, can we have some updated killer
How long
stats?
do you think this game's going to last to where that becomes
people have
relevant?
stats?
I know, Dylan. Can they?
Well, I'm going to show them anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, I figured. I don't bother answering.
So there you go. These are stats from December 16th to January 16th for all the killers. On the left side, you will see the average kill rates for those killers, and on the right, a little bit.
This actually makes a lot of sense.
The black numbers,
because this takes into account every player. So it takes into account newer players as well. And think about Pinhead for a newer player. With the box mechanic, they have no fucking idea what's happening. They don't know how to stop that box. They don't know what the hell's happening. So they have chains on them the entire game, and they're just getting destroyed. This makes perfect sense when you're looking at it from a new player standpoint as well. So this is obviously not like high MMR, as meaningless as that phrase is. This is obviously not high MMR. This is just the entire player base overall, of which there are more bad players than good players. So this makes perfect sense, honestly.
Moving on, we have a question from Epic Warhog, who asks, will we ever see a match replay system where you can rewatch your own matches?
No. We have no plans to add
this. I think it's got to be a kind of a flat no, because as much as we love one,
we know you can't do it. Just say no.
It's an extremely technical undertaking. It's the kind of thing where you need the game to be made from the ground up to support this.
To be fair to the devs, that is actually true. Making a replay system is actually very hard.
At this point in DP's development, well,
it's obvious the answer with this dev team is no, but
it would be
that's actually fair, because that is hard to do.
Undertaking just to rework everything to make this happen, and there's a lot of other things we know that people are asking for that we can actually do and that we're looking towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wasn't designed with that in mind, so it's a lot more work to add it now than it would be if we designed the game with that in mind. Next question.
Look at you simplifying my answers.
Yeah, just quick summary.
For those who want to wonder how it actually works, basically what you do is a replay is not actually a video. It's like called a demo. You basically record the positions of everybody, like every frame, and then store that, and then basically recreate the game using those logged movements. That's basically what it does.
Completed and approved yet. Contrary to what some people might say, when we undertake a killer update, there's actually a lot of research and planning involved, especially from the design side. Our live designers play tons and tons of games of that killer, tons and tons of games. They read threads on the forums, they talk to other team members, they talk to the community team to get a better idea of what the community is saying. We look at it from all angles. So it takes a while to make these designs. We still don't have an exact date to give you for when they're going to be delivered. Schedules can change. I don't want to tell you anything that's going to change.
I thought it was going to be sooner rather than later.
Or anything like that. But they are still the next killer updates that you'll see. Work is happening on them right now, and you'll see them as soon as they're done.
Yeah, so just really quick, can we rule out that it won't be in this next update, just so we don't get our hopes up?
We don't know, Mitch.
We traditionally release killer updates on mid-chapter patches, not like main chapter patches.
So it would be
so I wouldn't expect to see
March,
this
April,
in, what's it, 5.6
April, early May,
or anything like that.
Okay. So real quick break from the questions.
Makes sense.
I got a small little surprise to share.
Lower that.
It's going to be really small, I promise. So let's just take a look.
Very exciting sound.
I told you it'd be small. But there you go.
Right.
A very short teaser. We have a Lunar New Year event starting on January 25th.
I don't know what that showed, but okay, cool.
Getting right back into things, we have a question from Annie here, who asks, do you plan to add a practice mode, a practice mode against bots to practice killer powers?
Please do that. Just kill your friends with one player.
Is this one for
So
me
easy.
or Pat? I don't think we marked it down.
Whoever wants it.
I can take it.
Okay.
You can do it, Justin. I believe in you.
Yeah. So this is something that's actually frequently requested on our wish list as something that we're really looking at. Nothing currently planned, not off the table.
Dude, just kill your friends with one
Edge
player.
of the table? I don't know how you
has no
put
ending.
it.
Yeah.
So simple, dude.
The periphery, yeah.
All right. So although it sounds simple, it would be a pretty large amount of work to get this kind of thing working.
Why? You already have all the mechanics in the game.
Although we do have bots in for the tutorial, obviously that doesn't mean we can just throw them everywhere. There's a lot of things we need to consider. So bots require frequent updates whenever you add a new killer power.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're shitty.
Powers properly.
It doesn't matter if they
Survivor
barely
bots
work. You know how many people just want to go into games and just test blinks?
Any perk, they need
just
to know
test
how this perk
chainsaws.
should
Just you
react,
don't even need survivors.
how,
Just a
the AI
testing
should
ground
be-
for
should be using
the
it
actual
properly.
power itself.
So
You don't
again, it's
even
not
need bots.
impossible, not something we've written off. There's some other priorities that we're working on, but this is something that is not off the table, just the edge.
Yeah. You can imagine like if the bot doesn't know how to play against the pig, for example.
Who
you
cares?
Put a reverse bear trap on their head.
Most
and
people
they just
don't know how to play
take it
against
off.
anybody. That would be an
So
accurate
you put a
experience
bear
of the
trap on them
game.
and they die. They'll never get out of it. So it's something that we have to build to support every single killer, and that's a lot more work than it seems at a glance. Similar question, also about bots from Fantasy, who asks, when a survivor disconnects, can a bot replace them?
That's more complicated.
It's a great question. It's one that's been asked to me personally.
That I can understand them saying
internally
no
many times. Our stance on this is that Dead by Daylight is inherently a multiplayer game, and the human element of that is core to the experience. Bots are a great tool for teaching. They're great for practicing against, but they will never compete on the same level as a real human being. So to that end, we have no plans to replace disconnected players with bots.
Yeah.
That's
One
fair.
of the things about bots is
never
that they
thought that
sound
would happen.
really great on paper, but then that kind of turns when you're on the hook and they're just slowly sneaking towards you, and then they get caught and they start feeding into the killer's pop goes the weasel or pain resonance or something.
Left 4 Dead did this 12 years ago.
And it becomes very frustrating.
It's different
very
when the game
quickly.
is built for it to begin with. I can sympathize with not adding bots. That's complicated.
Teofal, who asks, will Year 7 focus more on game health instead of new content?
Well, their answer doesn't matter. They were
Short answer
focusing
for
on
that is
game
we are
health.
continuously working on both.
Yeah, they've been
So
saying
we
this
actually
for
have
5
separate
years.
teams
It
that
doesn't matter
handle
what
each
their
of
answer
these,
is.
so we are able to work on them all simultaneously.
You guys remember when they said
you can
console
imagine we can't
optimization
throw
like
artists
4
and
years
have them
ago?
directly
It was
work
like
on
3 years
something
ago.
else. So we do split up different teams, and we different
We're still
silos,
working on
and
it.
we prioritize the work accordingly so that we can keep the game moving forward and keep improving the health of it. So we've actually got tons of game health and quality of life focused
It's such a
content in the
non-question.
pipeline
It's a non-answer
that
and
we
a
hope to
non-question.
share with everyone later this summer.
Because what are
So,
they going to say?
I mean, stay tuned for all
What
of
is
our
their
broadcasts
response
and
to this
everything.
going to be?
We are
Are
going to
you focusing on
more.
health? No, fuck you.
It's a tricky.
Of course they're gonna
balance to
say
find,
yes.
because some people do want that new
Thanks,
content.
Archer.
I think even with this mid chapter, you can kind of see.
It's just
although
such a
it was
non-question.
focused largely on quality of life improvements and game health, there were some people just asking, "Where's the content?" So it's totally fair. We try to find the right balance there and give everybody something to look forward to.
I do hear there's also a very cool
They only pick
tome
non-questions.
release coming out this time.
A lot of the time, yeah.
But,
Maybe.
stay tuned.
They already saw it. DVD leaks
Question from
already leaked.
Freckled Shrike. Does Behavior plan to release more frequent and impactful game health patches like 5.3.0? Before we answer this, I just want to clarify that we don't really consider 5.3.0 to be game health, so to speak. There's a lot of good stuff in that. There's a lot of balance changes, but we consider game health to be more like fixing bugs, addressing big issues, quality of life features, things like that.
Yeah, and
sounds
the
like game
response
health.
to the large number of changes in 5.3.0 was extremely positive, and we know that everybody wants more. Giant patches like that are extremely hard to make, both because the work involved, but also because the play testing and the balancing passes needed. There's a lot of iteration. There's a lot of checks and stuff we have to do internally.
Oh, it's not that
so
complicated,
don't
man.
expect
It's
to
just
see
changing
giant
numbers on
patches like
perks.
that, every mid-chapter or even terribly frequently. But hopefully,
it's not
it's
that
not
complicated.
the last one like that you will ever see.
Yeah. Sometimes we like to have big updates, and sometimes we have to take some time to focus on the mundane things like fixing a bunch of nurse bugs, which probably isn't exciting to most people, but for the nurse players out there, I'm sure that's the greatest thing you've heard all year. It's only about a month.
It doesn't take 3 months to fix nurse bugs. Like,
you get the point.
There's a separate balancing team, and then there's like people that fix bugs. There's
Fantasy,
separate
who asks,
teams. It doesn't
Can
make
survivor
sense.
spawn and hex locations be improved? They specifically mentioned survivor spawning close to a generator or to a hex totem.
Yeah, we're always looking at improvements to our procedural generation system. Something we tweak fairly regularly. They're quite hard to do though, and they're really hard to test. Right? Something happens in 1 out of every 500 games. It's tricky for us to reproduce.
It ain't that uncommon. I run Lethal Pursuer and see it happen more frequently than that.
And a little more difficult to do, but we are always looking at them.
Yeah, there's also a catch here in that if you start adding a bunch of rules for where survivors can't spawn, like if you say you can't spawn near a hex totem, that immediately rules out a big part of the map, and that can create other issues where maybe instead of spawning next to a hex,
that
you
side of the
spawn
argument
right beside the killer.
So basically he's saying, like, if you make it really perfect so you never spawn your totems, there might not be enough space in the map to evenly distribute people, so you might spawn, like, in the killer's face or something. I understand the complications with that.
So it could even make it a little easier sometimes. So it's tricky. We also try to hide those totems better when we update maps. That helps a lot.
Yeah, and just to be clear, just us saying that it's tricky doesn't mean we're not working on it. We are working on it. It just means that it takes time.
For sure.
Not your age.
Next question comes from Cabbage. Simply put, just Cabbage. Could we please receive a new roadmap for upcoming features, game health,
because we don't commit to it and then you get mad at us.
For roadmaps, usually we drop these around the anniversary. So like our broadcast is around June. Our anniversary, I think, is actually June 16th. Since that's when a new year starts for TBD. I'm not sure if we'll have a physical roadmap this year. But keep an eye out around then, because that is certainly when we're going to be revealing the new content that we are trying to work on for the following year.
I don't even blame him anymore.
The thing with roadmaps is like we have a pretty consistent release schedule at this point, so it's not too surprising. And having a little bit of extra flexibility can be kind of nice because it lets us react to things and make changes without having to push something that we promised back. Question from Broken Bones: the issue of cheaters. Can we get an acknowledgement?
Cheaters suck, right? Cheaters suck. We all dislike cheaters. You guys all hate them. I hate cheaters. How
can you be so brave?
I know,
so brave.
right? Yeah, something so controversial yet so brave. But like, yeah, the thing is, the nature of cheats, hacking, right? That's where most of these cheats come from. That puts us in a bit of a bind as game developers. Anytime you talk about cheating or anti-cheating, you're providing information to the enemy. If you say you've prevented cheating in a certain way or around a certain mechanic, it's like a flare goes up. The cheating community responds by focusing on that specific thing, really looking at it hard and finding new ways to break the stuff that you've put in, finding new ways to cheat. It's an arms race. Right? So please, please, please understand that when we are remaining silent about cheating, it's often happening in order to break this cycle, right? In general, we're constantly making small changes and tweaks and
trying to stay
improvements
positive.
under the hood to fight
I genuinely
back on
agree
cheating.
with what he's saying.
Just don't talk about it.
If you say, hey guys, we
for
fixed
all of
it by
those
adding a regulation that checks if you're going 200% movement speed, you get banned, and hackers will just go 199%. You know, they can't be specific about it.
The reason why we don't go into specifics in the patch notes is because, again, we don't want to, put a target on.
Like, I get that. I sympathize with that.
Let's go break it again. Follow-up question, very similar as well, from Epic Warhawk. We have any chance for a new anti-cheat system?
So for this one, we're actually going to be changing the, I think it's the EOS is standing for Epic Online Services version of EAC to eventually support the Steam Deck. But we've no plans for a new system beyond that.
Yeah, just a quick note. There's work to be done within the game itself, not just on the anti-cheat. It's also on us to fix those vulnerabilities as they come up. Next question is from Chuck Litt,
what can you do?
Who asks, any plans to slightly slow down gens, especially early game? They give the example of having to find like a special tool to fix the gens.
Yeah, we've actually tried mechanics like hunting for special items at the start of the game in the past. I mean, we were talking about the early game stuff earlier in this Q&A, right? That's one of the things that we talked about a lot. And we've tried other similar mechanics as well. just like those during playtesting. They were pretty resoundingly rejected. They just weren't fun. They just added a level of complexity that most people didn't find to be enjoyable about the game. That said, generator timings
Doesn't that imply
and the
that doing
general
gens is the most fun thing,
slowdown
then?
meta are something that we're talking
That
about
heavily implies
right
that
now.
according to the
And,
devs, doing gens is the
hopefully
most
we'll
fun
have more
thing.
news to share on that.
There's no other
Yeah.
line of logic
Before
there,
we
right?
get any angry letters, I just want to clarify, are we also looking at the Survivor meta as well?
Oh yeah, we're looking at the meta on both sides. Soon. More to talk about soon.
You keep saying that word. Alex Segrab asks,
Doesn't make any
will we
sense.
ever see a visual rework for the older Moris?
So this is certainly something that's in our backlog as something we want to do, but we don't have any specific timeline for it. We would love to show our earlier killers some more love by giving them flashier Moris. And I think specifically, like we're talking about Trapper,
I
Raid
think the argument is that gens are already
I
boring.
think they could really use.
So we don't want to make them any more
like,
boring.
We all agree.
Yeah, that's what like a lot of the people or a lot of suggestions people had. Like the one I had was that when you get parts, it like doubles the speed of the gen.
That is if we
So you would actually have less time to work on gens, but you'd have to traverse the map and possibly encounter the killer and move around and promote more player interaction. That's the whole point.
What you're talking about.
He like sets a trap and then puts the survivor.
So you wouldn't be working on gens longer. You'd actually be working on gens less
Dwight
time.
Fairfields,
That's the whole point of doing it properly.
Asks, is there anything planned for the shape?
Simple answer there. Nothing on the immediate horizon.
Pure and simple. We've sort of moved away from making like big updates to a single killer in an update, and we've started to spread those changes around to multiple killers. One of the things about having 26 killers in the game is that if we change one of them, we've only changed 1/26th of the game. So we try to make a bunch of smaller changes to more killers.
You know what I want to do? I want to make
next question.
I want to make a Q&A by behavior and just switch out the responses and see if you can tell the difference.
About some balance changes made to face camping, but couldn't talk more
think you'd
about
be
them
able to.
yet. Is it possible to share them with us now?
I mean, the updates on that one, great question, is we're still working on it. We've got an internal prototype
ruined it 'cause I
that
spoiled
we're
it. I'm
playtesting
not gonna do it
like now-ish. I think it recently got finished, and we're organizing our playtest to take a look at it. But that's an early prototype, right? So it's still a long way from being completed. Game development, especially on a project the size and complexity of Dead by Daylight, takes a lot of time. We've got a lot going on, and we have to balance those priorities. But we are trying to give you guys hints and tidbits about what we're doing sooner than usual.
Yeah, I know you can't tell me what it is, but can you tell me what it isn't? Like, will I be able to fling myself off the hook and drop kick the killer if he camps me too long?
No killer drop kicking. Nothing quite as zany as that. No.
Maybe next time. Feel free to use that. From our Japanese community, we have a question from Hikarin, who asks, why do you nerf add-ons of killers who are unpopular or have lower kill rates?
Good question.
Yeah, it's I've seen that question floating around a lot lately.
I know
we
Pixel
often
Bush
talk
somewhere.
about kill rates, as a blanket term. It's a bit of shorthand.
Having an
but there
aneurysm.
is obviously a lot of nuance to it, right? Players at different skill levels, MMR, right, perform differently using the same killer. The Twins is actually a really, really good example of this. They're not picked that often, as you saw in the recent pick rate chart, right? And they're especially not very effective in terms of kill rate at low and mid-tier MMR, but they are absolute monsters at high-end MMR. Some of our players with the absolute highest kill rate in the game right now are playing Twins. They're Twins players. So buffing add-ons for the Twins doesn't make sense explicitly in a situation like this, because while it might increase the effectiveness of the killer at the low and the mid tier, it will absolutely further their imbalance at the high end of MMR, right? This is the kind of challenges that we're dealing with as game designers all the time. Nerfing them might seem a little bit cruel, but there are add-ons which are boosting the performance of these killers, the Twins, right, in this example, beyond the range that we normally want to see an add-on influence. So you look at how often that killer is killing when there's no add-ons or when there's different add-ons on.
I almost feel like there's not enough Twins players to even get data from.
Flying up way too high.
I feel like the sample size is like 6.
In addition to this, it's also worth remembering we did buff some add-ons. in this pass, right? We don't just nerf add-ons for these killers. We do buff them, right? Twins, again, example. Iridescent Pendant and Baby Teeth were weaker add-ons. They both don't see great correlation with kill rate. So we buffed them. We saw their, you've seen their durations extended significantly in this patch with an
Wasn't it
aim
like
to make
really,
them
really
more
minor?
appealing, more interesting, and more well-balanced.
Yeah, one other thing about this mid-chapter is that all of the add-on changes that we've done took no programmer time. So we only have a limited bandwidth of time for every department.
Almost like you can do that every time. You change perk values. It's changing a number. You don't need programmer time.
The designers can go in.
You can do that to like 70 perks a patch, dude.
You know,
it would
things
take
like Alchemist
not even a day.
And like a big part of the reason why that wasn't included here is because there's no time to make an actual programming change behind.
Yeah, he basically just admitted, hey guys, we can totally shift these add-ons that need to be changed because it's not really programmer intensive. We just change values, but
it doesn't mean that we're not paying attention to it. It's not on our radar.
6 years to change Trapper from 1 to 2
as soon as we can.
Yeah, there's a few add-ons in the game. I don't know if you've noticed.
Just a couple.
Just a couple.
Next question comes from Setsetat, who asks, are you planning on implementing any new games?
That's a hard no.
Yeah, this is something that's been in discussion for a while internally. We're working on improving our matchmaking overall, but we're also at the same time investigating, there we go, that's a word, the impact of splitting the queue between our main mode and some other hypothetical mode. It's
what does that mean?
Right now,
you're investigating it.
Or how long it would
what does that sentence mean? You're investigating it. The only way you can investigate it is if you try it and see the results.
Play the role they choose without having to wait.
What they're just saying is they're just assuming what's going to happen.
Especially when you add another game mode
into
the mix. If our current state of matchmaking would be found to break matchmaking queues for those intending to play, the regular game when there are other modes available, then that's not a good thing, right? We got to keep every aspect of the game viable.
So what you're saying basically is that there's a chance.
Oh, there's always a chance. A wink.
Yeah, he wrote that wink in.
I think that wink was a little delayed, but
depressing. That's just DVD devs in a nutshell. There's always a chance.
Moving on. Shrimpy asks,
good things.
Can we get a little more info on those Survivor solo queue improvements?
I'm gonna have to give everybody's favorite answer on there. We don't have much to reveal about that right now. It's again very early.
What new information have we learned from this Q&A other than Circle of Healing being nerfed by 25% within the first 5 seconds of the Q&A?
Everybody to keep making posts on the forums about what you'd like to see in terms of solo queue improvements as a survivor. We really do read them. I read them. Dylan reads them. Everybody reads them. The whole team reads them, right? Justin reads them. There's names of other designers on the team I can't remember. Everybody reads the damn things. So please do keep leaving them. They're great. They're super useful information. We want to know what kind of things solo queue survivors are looking at getting to improve their play experience.
Yeah, this is probably like one of the earliest times we've ever shown something like this off. I just really quickly want to shout out 99th Cloud from Reddit, who made an amazing mock-up. I'll put it on screen right now. Of how that could look, and there are some great discussions about this.
Basically, they're just doing the VHS thing. This is one of the things I suggested. I thought like doing a chat wheel would be better, but this works too.
It's nice to hear how you guys talk about what would be great for the survivor experience.
I think that'd be good.
But what killers think about it as well is also very important. So we're following those discussions very closely, and it's great to see everyone passionately talking about it, because when we do it, we want to do it right.
Yep, for sure. Our next question comes from Poorly Python, who asks, will iridescent shards ever be easier to earn?
So we've begun giving out shards as login rewards more often. I'd say mostly for bigger events, but sometimes for smaller ones, like even during Bone Chill and the login calendar surrounding that, we had some that were given out. But in terms of being easier to earn from gameplay, there are currently no plans. So just hang around for events and login rewards when they happen for the best chance to get some quick iridescent shards.
Yeah, the idea behind Shards is to give like the super dedicated players out there a way to earn content for free. So while we can be kind of willy-nilly with blood, I've never used that term before. I don't know if you could tell. While we could just give out blood points like they're nothing, we can't do the same for Shards because they're a way to get free stuff. They have to be tightly controlled. The next question comes from Gemalaski, who asks, can you let us know which maps have the most escapes and kills? Not Patrick. Justin, can the people have more stats?
Again,
I'm showing them anyway.
I guess.
Yeah, so the Killing Is map
Cowshed is the worst, huh?
Midwich
I figured it was gonna be that.
Did we?
Or some variant of Bad and Preschool.
Killing Us?
But yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
It's not a word. I made it up for this.
I feel like that's a word. I feel like
that makes a lot of sense, actually.
If it's not, it is now.
I mean, surviving is, yeah, I accept that one.
Yeah, it's about 50%. So if you're gonna 1v1 someone, 1v1 them at Cowshed. There you go.
50% still. Yeah, you guys got to take into account they're accounting for all skill brackets too.
True,
it's a very different game from probably what a lot of us even know.
Next question comes from Majura, who asks, what is the killer and survivor player distribution? They say that queue times for survivor for them seem shorter during the day than they do at night.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Internally, we call this sort of concept the role ratio, right? It's the ratio between killer and survivors who are in the queue at any given time. In a perfect world, you want that to be 4-to-1, or survivors to killers, right? So 4 survivors for every killer. That would make it really great. But the truth is that that ratio, that value, fluctuates throughout the day. It shifts based on tons of different factors. The time of day, seeing it queue times shift from daytime to nighttime. That's a really big one. Region, different areas of the world see their shifts happen in different ways. The platform, Xbox versus PlayStation versus PC. There's a lot of stuff. The day of the week, right? Weekends, there's no school. A lot more people playing the game.
So what is the answer?
Even seasonally, right? You see a lot more players showing up during the summer months. Again, no school, stuff like that. Christmas break, right? Often has a lot more players showing up. So I can't actually give you any specific answer on this about what the player distribution is, because in terms of how it affects matchmaking, by the time I finish the sentence, it will be wrong. So it's just one of those things about making an asymmetric game.
Incorrect. There are certain times of day where queues are worse, and that doesn't change variably every 5 seconds.
It's probably true.
That's just incorrect.
Next question we have comes from Tarnavsky, who asks, will SBMR ratings be visible?
That's a hard
no. Not
no.
anytime soon. Having a visible MMR is something that will absolutely lead to a lot of toxic elitism. And we
that
don't
already happens
that
and they can't see it. Just whatever, at least show us.
What we do want is to have a way for our more competitively minded gamers to get feedback on their standing within the game, something a little bit more meaningful than the current grade system is. And we want to do that eventually. As with many other things, it's not at the top of our list at the moment, but it is something that is being worked on.
Yeah, we also have to acknowledge that there's some people out there who don't want to see that number. Some people get stressed out when they have a bad match and they see that go down, and it just really upsets them. So there's 2 sides to it. I don't think anyone's really wrong, but we got to keep both sides in mind there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question comes from Michaela Wants Your Boon. Love that name. Are you planning on wrapping up the Realm Beyond by the 6th anniversary?
So the very short answer is just nope. We got a few maps that are remaining that we still like to tackle, and it's going to take some more time to work on.
Yeah, they're a ton of work, and the anniversary seems really far off for everyone else.
We got more breakable walls to add, boys.
Not even 5 months, I guess. But to us, like, it's right around the corner. Like, we're about to start working on stuff. All right, so before we go on to the next question, we have something a little different. We have a giveaway. One of the pieces of feedback that we get pretty often is that we didn't rig it for you. Ha ha ha, you spelled my name wrong. So today we're rigging it for you. You already won. Congratulations. Just go into the in-game store, click the redeem code button in the top right corner, and enter the code Lights Camera BP.
I'm worried I might produce better content than behavior if I go.
Congratulations, you won.
That was mean. This game is fun. That was mostly just a joke.
We have a question from Mooks, who asks, are you planning on running more experimental test runs similar to the weekend with Disabled Bloodlust?
Right now, we don't have anything planned. We just don't have anything we need to do a big game-wide test like that on.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
worth
pretty
noting,
sure
however,
if I go take a shit and I miss anything, the answer to every question will just be no. So I don't think I'll miss anything.
Things that are
Thanks,
a little bit more reduced in scope. So if we ever have something worthy of like a test like that, the Bloodlust one. There's the word. Too many blood-related things in this game. I get confused. I almost said Blood Rush, and I know that's not the right one. If we ever have something big like the Bloodlust test to do again, we will absolutely do it. We just don't have one that we want to do right now.
Yeah, for sure. So if it's something that just affects you, it's more likely going to end up in the betas tab. If it's something that affects everybody, chances are we'll do like a full
I slept
weekend
3
like
hours
we've done
for
for
this
the
shit.
Bloodlust test in the past.
Yeah,
Terrible
that's the
choice.
general split, right? The betas are for things that, generally speaking, are more immediately impactful on yourself, like the Wiggle beta that we had on the PTB and will be coming out with the next release as well.
Isn't the point of a question and answers to have
Things
answers?
that
I mean,
are more
technically,
reduced in
no is
scope
an
or
answer.
impact just
So
you are go in the beta tab.
not technically
Game-wide
wrong.
tests that really impact play balance and how other people have to respond to you, those need to be turned on or off for everyone. Those are the ones we save for the big community-wide tests.
Yep. All right, next question comes from Maximo, who says, any plan to rework the perk system in the future? They specifically mention a point-based system where weaker perks cost less points to equip.
I always thought
there's no
that'd be
plans to
interesting.
rework the perk system in that kind of a way beyond the stuff
I
that
would
we
love
talked
that,
about,
honestly.
teased really previously about progression system overhauls.
Because there's a perk
so the 4 perk
like Predator,
kind of
and there's a perk like
well.
Decisive Strike, and they're in the
to
same
just
video
toss on
game.
an
They
endless
shouldn't
amount
be
of perks to
weighed
make
the
you good
same.
at
I don't
just
know.
about everything. It really kind of
That's
forces
just
you to
an
pick what
opinion.
you
Though
want to
some people don't like
specialize
that.
in. The other thing is that if something's standing out from the pack, we'd rather balance that perk and bring it closer in line rather than creating a new system just to accommodate it. All right, next question is from Cryptos, who asks, will we ever be able to change the lobby background?
The pivotal
This
questions.
one certainly comes up from time to time. Short answer is no. We're not planning to add that. I know we all have our favorite lobbies from past chapters and events. I mean, as someone who's like working with the events teams on some of those and seeing the ones for chapters, they're super cool. And we tend to just do those themed lobbies tying into whatever's going on at the moment, so it ties everything that's going on, makes the game feel alive, and makes it feel special. Even when you're just queuing up. And just trying to make those ones is already a significant amount of work.
Yeah. So I guess my question for you guys is, what's your favorite lobby from the past? Kind of putting you on the spot here, so I'll go first, and I'll just say I like the Winter Solstice one with the bells and the background music and everything. Still nostalgic for that one.
Put some fancy.
That's a gooder.
I think I go way back to when the gravestones for Halloween were the names of the devs. I think that was before I was even here. That's really a deep cut.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of All Kill and Silent Hill in chat.
Yeah, I love that.
Also makes sense.
All Kill was real nice.
I still want a map for that. That's awesome. Okay. We have another question from Nocturne, who asks, are you looking at doing some quality of life changes for the twins anytime soon?
The twins, another twins question.
Should I do the banner?
I think you have a banner. Yeah, I think you have a disclaimer to help me. Okay, there we go. Not in the next update. You
Son
have
of a
been
bitch.
warned. Okay. The
Motherfuckers,
twins come up
you
in
can't-
discussion regularly.
Well, now it's not
and
funny because they
are
made fun of
likely
themselves.
to be the
God
next
damn it.
killer to see love after the Ghostface and Legion updates that we were talking about previously. This is not coming anytime soon. Look at the banner. Look at the banner.
It's not fair.
Not coming anytime soon.
You can't
Please
make
don't,
fun of things
freak
when they
out
make
that
fun of
not in the
themselves.
next
It's
patch
the
or
ultimate
anything.
defense. Now it's
Twins
just not funny
changes are
anymore.
gonna
Now
take
it's just
a lot
sad.
of time. There's a lot to do with the twins, specifically due to the nature of the killer.
Stream sniping me. I'm pretty sure these are pre-recorded.
Clean up a lot of the friction points that people are experiencing to take into account a lot of the feedback we're getting. It's going to take time. It's tricky. Will be done. Not anytime soon.
All right, then. Next question we have is from two people, actually. We have a very similar question from Tanner and Jemalaski, who ask, how do you consider what's a priority to change and update and what's not?
That's a good question.
Yeah, like specifically in regards to like game balance stuff, right? We look at both
well,
quantitative
Justin here, he's
and
really good at
qualitative
darts.
data,
We just lined up
two
this board.
keywords that are quite long and hard to say. So quantitative data from quantity, right? That's stuff like just raw numbers that we track over thousands or even millions of matches. For example, when a killer uses a specific perk in a match, how much does that impact the kill rate? Do they kill 5% more than
Sure,
when they
that
don't
data
use
is
the
not
perk?
useless.
Do they kill 20% more? Do they kill
It tells
less?
a little bit of
That
the
happens
story.
sometimes. You see perks that make it so you actually kill less when they're really poorly balanced, right? So we compare use rates like that to MMR as well. Perks that are used more often at high MMR are likely strong and result in more wins, hence the climb up the MMR ladder. These are just some examples. There's tons and tons more stats that we look at, lots of different things. I'm just giving you a taste of some of the really obvious ones that are kind of interesting. Qualitative data, quality, is more personal and more individual. It's more subjective. For stuff like this, we read the forums, right? We talk to players. We do deep dives into the practical use of perks in typical matches, really, try to understand not how they're performing, but how they feel. Designers play with the perk. We play against it exclusively. We watch lots of streams. We really just gather the individual anecdotal data rather than looking at just raw stats, right? When you think that we're just looking at raw
everything
stats,
indicates
no,
that they
it's just
don't
part
do
of
that.
part of the overall picture that we're bringing together here. The list of what we need to tweak is actually
Isn't that
extremely
really
fluid. We're
an
always moving
antithesis to
things
what they
around
just said
on it
about
and trying to be as flexible
kills
as possible.
determining
we generally
MMR?
maintain a hit list of perks and
I feel like
add-ons and
they had the
mechanics and
complete
things like
opposite mindset
that
now.
need to be
Thanks, Beth.
adjusted. But we change that list because the game is constantly changing and new things come out. So sometimes we're working on something that'll take a while. Oops, new patch comes out, it's introduced a balance change that necessitates immediate action, pushes something else down the list. So it's actually really dynamic.
Yeah, we also have some pretty nifty charts that show how often something's used compared to how well it's performing, and that's a great way to kind of spot at a glance something that might become a problem in the future, even though people aren't really complaining about it right now.
Absolutely.
So next question we have, this isn't me saying this is just the person's name. Xenomorph for DVD asks, have you ever thought about revisiting a chapter?
Thanks, Light.
So adding a survivor or a map to something that didn't already have one.
I realized we kind of actually, we kind of answered, like, at least our personal opinions on this a bit earlier when we were talking about lobbies. But we've touched on this in the past, and I think we'd all love to see a map based on the all-kill lobby. I think that one was pretty obvious. Not planned for the moment, but we won't rule it out for the future.
Is Justin in front of a green screen, or is that actually a perfectly Gaussian blurred background?
It's all based on what
I can't tell because there's something bugging out on the right side of him.
Bandwidth and resources that we have.
And I can't tell if that's like green screen
again,
fucking
not
up
to rule
or
it
like
out. Could happen, but
nothing
set in stone.
Yeah,
it's a filter.
I
Okay,
think it's also
it looked
fair to say
unnatural.
that if we were to do something like this, it'd probably be a surprise. We wouldn't want to, just go, hey, we're gonna do this, and then it just comes out like 6 months from now.
Oh, it's an NVIDIA broadcast effect. Oh, neat. I didn't even know that was the thing.
Next question comes from Big Chap Alien, who asks, can we get a search bar for perks?
Without going to specifics, we've been looking at the flow of equipping perks, and we've got a few improvements that will be coming out soon.
What is the flow of equipping
sooner
perks?
than my usual soons that I've been giving.
He's making it seem like there's a science to it.
On hand, so I can't give you any
We've
promises,
analyzed with a double-blind study the flow and the procedure for equipping. Just click the button. What the fuck does that even mean?
Just generally cleaning up that flow.
That's trying to make sound something so much more complicated than it is. It's literally just picking a thing.
In the near future, the actually demonstrations.
We had to acquire mass quantitative data to see how people equip their perks.
Perk equipping.
Barbecue and chili being in the first slot is a point of contention
I'm convinced
amongst
that you're trying to squeeze the word "soon" in there as many times as you can.
That
one wasn't even written.
It's hard not to say soon, right? But it's the truth. I'm very excited. I want to tell everybody about all this stuff. I also don't want to tell you about something that I immediately changed the next week, or have to go back on my words. So that's why soon comes into this a lot. I want to give you guys concrete things when I have something concrete to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. We don't want to dodge questions, so we take the most upvoted questions, and sometimes the answer to them is not going to be the most satisfying because we just can't talk about it yet. It's too early, or it could change.
I just don't understand the point of doing a Q&A if the answer is always going to be no.
That's why a lot of these questions end up with the same similar kind of answer. It's just because we don't want to lie. we want to be honest about this. Next question actually comes from our Japanese community. They ask, I'm a beginner killer. Survivors I match with are sometimes Iridescent Grade, and I'm overwhelmed. Is skill-based matchmaking really working?
That's a great question. I understand where it's coming from. So first of all, it's important to remember that the grade that you see, in this case, Iridescent Grade, isn't really an indicator of skill or MMR. It's not an indicator from the skill-based matchmaking system.
It's more of an indicator of skill than MMR is.
Folks with Iridescent Grades
I can't believe I'm saying that, but it actually is.
Played a fair bit
if you have someone that gets to Iridescent in a couple of days,
down to the bottom.
It's likely they play a lot, which offers a correlation to them possibly being better.
On the 13th or
MMR
on the 14th,
just has nothing.
I doubt you'll see too many Iridescents, although I'm sure somebody's going to take that as a challenge. So yeah, in terms of the MMR system itself, and I'm going to be very careful when I say this, and put a lot of caveats here. The MMR system itself, the ratings, is absolutely working well. I'm going to expect the chat to explode in 2 seconds. We've gathered tons and tons of data that show it's really good at predicting match outcomes. The problem, and there is a problem, I am admitting there's problems here, lies more with the matchmaking system itself and the situations where it puts players into a game that it already knows will be imbalanced.
I understand that. I get that.
Matchmaking
but that's
is
still part of the system, you know? You can't say the MMR system is fine because it is calculating things properly.
Really, really fast in any matchmaking
and then
system,
not make it properly based on that accuracy, you know?
Not fun for the people.
They have to go together. They're the same thing. If one thing is not working, then it's not working.
Take hours to find them. It would be really easy for us to say every match is perfectly balanced if y'all were willing to wait for 3 hours to play every single match. That doesn't sound like a good time, though. So, you know, there are places in our system that prioritize speed over fairness right now a little bit too much. And I think one of the prime examples, and likely where a lot of these problems are coming from, is from a concept that we call backfilling. This is when a player quits from a lobby or doesn't manage to connect to the lobby due to
He's going about the whole thing where if you rejoin a lobby, then it's not going to have MMR thing. I watched Anna, the girl that Otz was coaching, play her first Survivor game ever. Her first game, didn't leave a lobby, didn't do anything like that, and the killer had like 2,000 hours. Her very first game.
So we prioritize speed there.
There's no backfill. It just doesn't work.
Especially in situations, I think, that happens to killer players. You can be a killer player who gets sucked into a game due to that speed criteria for those other 4 survivors. But whoops, now you're really far out of the skill range that match really should have called for. So that is something very, very specific that we're looking at improving right now.
Sure. So just to give an example, if you have like a really high rating lobby and then the killer dodges, for example, it might grab a newer killer, and just throw them into that lobby because
how often does that happen for you guys?
Really quickly.
I typically don't see killers leave and rejoin lobbies, and I typically don't see survivors leave and rejoin. It happens sometimes, but it's certainly not that common to where this is the primary problem. It does happen, but you're acting like the backfill thing is the main issue, but I feel like it's really not, right?
Okay. Next question, also from our Japanese community, comes from, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name.
Pretty often, actually. I mean, it's just anecdotal. I don't see it much, but not saying it doesn't happen
when
here.
they're matched with a Survivor friend group for motivation.
So it's something that I know we've discussed about internally at one point or another.
I'm going to go make a behavior patch.
There's nothing currently
I'll still
planned.
watch this on my phone, so we can still watch it.
Something that's better to look at is, how do we properly compensate and deal with that? And I think, like if we were to give, survivors more, indication of what others are doing, okay, how do you make it fair for the killer as well? And so there's other ways I think we can be dealing with that. And I think even just adjusting how the matchmaking works would be a better way. But again, nothing planned. But discussions are going on, for ways that can balance a killer better if they are going against the group.
Yeah, the idea is more to close that gap so it's not something you need to reward for, rather than just tossing blood points at it and pretending that the problem's not there. Next question is, can you let players know when they get a thumbs up and maybe give them some BP for it as well?
So I think we've actually discussed a bit about improving this whole system in terms of, I'll generally say, like rewarding or endorsing other players, but there's currently no plans to actually change it. But maybe in the future, we're looking at ways we can encourage positive reinforcement through players, and so that's kind of where our minds are at.
Yeah, for sure. Much bigger fish to fry for the moment, but yeah, definitely something that's on the wish list. I would say. Has a perk ever been scrapped because it's too powerful, weak, or funny? And if we have the reason to, then they'd love to know.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, truth is, I'm going to try not to say soon anymore in this answer. Let's see if I can pull it off. The truth is that most of our crazy perk ideas die really, really early in the design process. Our designer, we'll have a brainstorm. A designer will throw out a perk idea, and someone will just go, oh, here's an obvious problem with that. Here's an obvious issue, or that thing is going to be really OP if you use it with something else, or what have you. Or the alternative happens, the complete other side, is when somebody says, oh, I've got this perk idea, and everybody just kind of looks at each other and shrugs and goes, I'd never equip that. Nobody would ever equip that. That actually sounds like a totally useless perk. So these days, we really don't scrap any perks that make it to the playtesting stage. That happens very, very, very rarely, and less as time goes on as well. Our main perk designer, honestly, I think this is a really good compliment to our perks design team. They've been doing a great job. They have good perk ideas kind of right out the gate, ones that are interesting, ones that are fairly well balanced. We just don't get these really goofy, silly perks anymore. I wish I had any goofy, silly perk stories to give you. Maybe Peanuts, do you got any of those from maybe before my time?
There was one from a PTB one time. We kind of jokingly call it selfish care because it was an update to self-care that actually made it to the PTB. You basically healed yourself at 75% speed, but you also healed other people at 75% speed. And that one was very, very polarizing. I remember that some people loved it and some people absolutely hated it. But yeah, I don't recall why that one was shut down. I want to say it was kind of punishing if you were the one person on the team who wasn't running it, but yeah, it's been a while. Next question we have is, do you plan to add an exposed add-on to the nurse, like Blight and Deathslinger?
We're not planning on anything like that specifically. Doesn't mean it's off the table, but we're just not planning on doing something like that. There's a lot of add-ons in the game. I think we've made a few jokes about that already. We're constantly rebalancing them, retooling them, taking looks at them, right? We were talking about the big 5.3.0 patch, right? That had a lot of add-on changes in it. So maybe in the future something like that will happen when we're looking at add-ons for those killers, but nothing explicit. I have nothing to tease on that front.
Yeah, sometimes we put an exposed add-on on a killer, but most of the time we don't. It's only really if it fits in the killer's power, and I feel like Nurse probably doesn't need it. I think she's one of the strongest killers in the right hand.
Yeah, that's my gut says probably not on the Nurse, but yeah, anything can happen. So
who knows? Maybe there'll be some crazy condition where it makes sense. But
if somebody writes a really, really well thought out essay on the forums capable of convincing me that we should do that, you might change my mind.
Needs to be at least 5 pages, though.
Yeah, 5 pages, double spaced, no more than 2 typos.
All right. Well, the next question is, do you plan to increase the 1 million BP cap?
So, man, we've really been thinking about this one recently because we hear this a lot. So we've been trying to think what value
why would they
the
read a
cap is
question about a
actually
nurse
bringing
exposed
us
add-on?
at
What's the
this point.
point?
For now, I can really only say that blood points, like any blood points you get from promo codes, login gifts, the season grade rewards will never count towards this cap and always let you surpass it until you. I think we mentioned this earlier as well. As soon as you do surpass it with one of those, you do have to drop back down before you can naturally gain BP. But if you wanted to surpass it and keep on using promo codes, those would keep on piling up.
For sure. We used to be like really dead set against removing the cap, but I think it's open to discussion now, especially now that we're giving like up to 2 million points a month. Maybe the time has come, you know?
Yeah, I would say if we're always giving bonus,
maybe soon.
What we call bonus blood points that surpass the cap, why have a cap at all? So that's why the discussion is kind of coming back up again, of like, well, why not?
For sure. Another question from our Japanese community. Never mind. From our Russian community. I lied. From Evaliv. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I butchered your name. Are there plans to buff killers who struggle against Survive with Friends?
Thanks, Skyward.
Not really. We generally try to avoid balance changes to individual killers specifically for their performance against Survive with Friends or solo survivors or anything like that. And the main reason why we avoid doing it specifically for how they handle Survive with Friends is because
which killers do you think they're referring
to lead to that killer being overpowered when facing off
like
against
Trapper,
solo survivors.
I guess.
So the goal is to just have them be balanced across the board. But we generally don't.
There's a couple of killers that definitely are punished more for going against coordination.
Because of Survive with Friends kind of balancing stuff.
Yeah, again, like we mentioned before, we try to avoid doing things specifically for Survive with Friends. The goal is really to close that gap so you don't need to in the first place.
That is not mine, Bilsby.
I also think we kind of take that into consideration while we're designing killers and stuff these days. We try to think about what kind of effect it would have in a solo group versus
Thanks, Google.
Survive with Friends.
And Zilly. And Bloom. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, next question, and I'm very sorry for this one. We take the most upvoted questions, and this is what came from Twitter. This one comes from Honey Bear, who says, "Hi, Dead by Daylight," misspelled, just like the hashtag.
They always have to get one of these.
It me again. When is Felix taking off the rest of his shirt?
Somehow the answer is going to be still no.
I love that you had to specify that Twitter is that thirsty. So I would say Felix is slowly taking it off, outfit by outfit. Rumor has it if the weather's too cold, he may actually put more on.
This
Right
this
now,
may be like cynical of me,
the
but
greatest
I have
outside,
no
which is very
problem with
different.
devs like making jokes like this and being silly
hope for,
if they like are having like
There was a
if
shirt
they're
in
being
2
viewed
days
in good
ago,
faith, you
Felix
know?
outside, I would
Because then
be
it's
impressed.
just like a buddy like joking around with you. But if they're just like constantly
Actually, yeah, you're right. That'd probably be the
viewed in
same.
like a negative way, I feel like the jokes come off as just like not good.
Okay, so the last question we have is from Standemic over from
That
our
might
Russian
just be an
community.
Thanks, Potato.
Would the endgame collapse system be reworked somehow? It's easy to control from the survivor side by leaving the gates almost powered so the survivors don't feel any oppression from it.
It's a good question. The endgame collapse isn't supposed to really be oppressive. It exists.
Does anyone have a
to
problem with the
prevent
endgame
stalemate
collapse?
scenarios. So before the endgame collapse was in DVD, there were lots of situations and lots of times
feel like
where the
endgame
game
collapse
would
is
kind
fine.
of end in a stalemate.
In fact, I think that's one of the best random like
survivors would be
actual
hidden,
gameplay changes they've
and
made
the
in a very
killer
long time.
would be in a perfect defensive position, standing over the hatch or something like that, and no one would really move.
You can 99
right?
gates. You know how many
There's, to no
times I've
one's
killed people
benefit
because
to
they
progress. You
99
end
a
up in
gate
this
and couldn't get
gross
out?
stalemate kind of
I don't think
situation.
99 gates is as
The
big of a
EGC
deal as
adds
people
a
say it
time
is.
pressure, right? It forces one side, in
It's
this case,
annoying
the
sometimes,
survivors,
but
to make a play and to make decisions and to do something where previously they would just hold still indefinitely. So this just keeps the game moving towards an inevitable conclusion. So with that in mind, the endgame collapse works great. It does that thing, and we have no plans to change it.
Yeah, and if you ever do want the survivors to be up against the clock, you can open it yourself, and that'll start the clock and let you use Blood Warden, for example.
After this, I want to go back in the VOD and look.
Q&A part. Just a quick
And
recap
talk
of the
about some
news.
stuff they said.
We have a Circle of Healing nerf on the way. It's on screen right there. 100% heal speeds being reduced to 75%.
For the record, that's going to change his self-care from 8 seconds to 10 seconds with a medkit.
You can earn up to 1 million points per side per month.
Better than nothing.
Play both sides.
It
and get
doesn't
2
really
points.
fix it though.
What's not to love? And then the last thing is that the Blood Rush ends tomorrow. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Does
it's really
anybody
not
have
going to
words of
change much.
wisdom?
It's still going to be one of the best perks in the game by a long shot.
Put me on the spot like that.
I like how you expect it's putting you on the spot. I'm just here.
I'll just take the shield for you there, Justin. Don't worry, I'll take it. Good game. Next map.
All right. I would say just like change your underwear daily.
That's solid. That's solid advice.
At least rotate, like flip it inside or
Let's
out.
go
I
back.
mean,
You know what? Call your mother. She's worried
Let's
about
check
you.
some
It's been a while.
stuff.
She hasn't heard.
It's a
Call your
classic.
mom.
All right. I guess that's it then.
I was thinking, if you're calling your mother, don't let her know that you're flipping or rotating your underwear.
Yeah, don't do
That's
that. Different times. All right. Well, I guess that's it then. Bye-bye.
All right, let's go back in the VOD.
How long can I linger on this before?
All right,
characters, and that's why we're all.
I need to analyze this.
To keep can't earn any more.
We also
And
console
Where was it? He
Camping.
talked about
effects on certain killers. Next question. We have a similar question, not directly similar. But
This is what I want to analyze.
From Jeff Philippe, who asks, "Why don't perks count towards your rating?"
was it really a skilled play in the?
Here we go.
While that certainly are proxies for skill, there's a common.
This whole
Who
section
asks,
is a train
would it
wreck.
be possible to change the SBMM system to be more skill-based and not based on kills and escapes? I know you could talk about this all day, so I'm going to cut you off if it goes too long.
Yeah, I've got some notes here, but I'm desperately trying to keep it brief. So I'll please understand I am simplifying some things here. Don't read too much into every detail I'm saying. I'm trying to keep this brief. But there's a common misconception that by using just kills and escapes to adjust your MMR, it's ignoring skill in the game.
Okay, Can someone find me in the last dev stream they did? Didn't they say the complete opposite of that? Didn't they say that it's actually not working as intended? Isn't that the complete opposite of what they said, or am I misremembering that? Like, I could have sworn that happened, right? Can anyone find me a clip of that? I will VIP you if you get me a clip of that. I think it was Patrick that said that. Yeah, he said something like it's impossible to create a real system that accurately gauges skill, right? I'm pretty sure they said that. He said it was too much nuance. So he basically, I as far as I remember, in the last stream that they talked about this, they said that the system wasn't really skill-based because there was too much nuance to doing it. And that's fine. I think that's lazy, but it's fine. That's reasonable. But now he's sort of saying the opposite of that. That's a good way to put it, Ensby, that they're mixing up outcome with skill. Which, as you know, if you play this game for more than 5 minutes, there is very little correlation. I'm not going to say there's no correlation. You know what? I think it's a lot easier to determine... It's a lot easier to determine killer skill solely by outcome. Because if you get a 4K, you killed everybody. That is far more concrete. So I think it's a lot easier to do killer skill. Survivor skill is extremely hard to quantify automatically. Let's see this. What? You didn't give me a timestamp. Oh, 29 minutes.
It goes, I know that you died. It's ignoring how you got there because there's too much nuance to be able to make a real effective system. So we just ignore that and we go, cool, you play the way that you want to play.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty much what I was thinking of, yeah. So they pretty much said that it's not an effective system, and now they're kind of doubling back on that, saying that, no, this is actually working. Like, he just said that, right? He literally just said...
Yeah, I've got some notes here, but I'm desperately trying to keep it brief. So I'll please understand I am simplifying some things here. Don't read too much into every detail I'm saying. I'm trying to keep this briff. But there's a common misconception that by using just kills and escapes to adjust your MMR, it's ignoring skill in the game. This isn't the truth, though. This is false. Kills and escapes are proxies for skill.
So I'm not crazy, right? Doesn't that just completely contradict what he just said? Or I've slept 3 hours. I might be completely delusional. Because he just, in the last video, said that we can't make it system. There's too much nuance, which I understand. But now he's saying, no, it's totally working just fine. I'm going to have to, I'm probably going to make a video about this. I'm going to have to make a more fair statement there, because it might not be it's not a direct one-to-one comparison, so I can't God, thank you for the prime.
In that skilled play inherently leads to kills or escapes. Think about sports, and I'll use hockey as an example because I'm Canadian. You wouldn't say they only count wins.
They're saying it's too nuanced to do properly, but their system is working as they intended it. I suppose that's fair. Max, thanks for the prime. Our system is working as intended. It's just not intended to be accurate. Well, that's not a very it's not a very good thing to say, but I guess that's true.
When placing teams in the standings, but they should also count shots on goal too. A more skilled player takes more shots. The only sports, and I'll use hockey as an example because I'm Canadian. You wouldn't say they only count wins when placing teams in the standings, but they should also count shots on goal too. A more skilled player takes more shots. And while that's certainly true, it's important to remember that shots lead to goals, which lead to wins. So you can kind of cut the middleman out there.
No, because what if a guy shoots 7,000 times and misses every single time? This is the problem with his argument. He's assuming because you take more shots that you're going to always make more goals. What if you're fucking terrible and you miss every shot you take? You could take 1 trillion shots and miss 1 trillion goals. And this is the perfect way to I'm so confused. I'm agreeing with him? He's saying it doesn't matter how many shots you take. Wait, so again, I slept 3 hours. I think I just didn't get him. No, that's totally fine. I'm not gonna grill him on something if I'm not interpreting him properly. What is he trying to say then? A shot on goal has to hit the goalie or net to count as a shot. Oh, is that true? I don't know shit about hockey. I thought if you just hit the puck, it counts as a shot. You can still, yeah, that's a good way to put it, Purple. Like, just because you have, like, you know, Michael Jordan on a team, for example, that doesn't mean that although the Bulls are going to win, it doesn't mean that everybody on the team is as good as Michael Jordan. Is that a good, simple way to put it? Like, I'm trying to, like, make this, like, a very simple analogy. And even then, it's a 5v5 anyway. Well, yeah, true. If you said shots the goal, yeah. If you said shots the goals, I think that'd be a much better comparison. I think the argument is similar for chases. Sure, surviving a 4-minute chase is a good indicator of skill, but if it's because you're using every palette map, it's not that skillful. Yes, that's why I'm not gonna bring up my old videos, but that's why, like, the system I designed, obviously it just because I made it doesn't mean it's correct or anything, but my idea for this was it would take that shit into account. The way you do it, the way you actually determine a survivor skill, yeah, like, you can't just say the Meg that drops 20 safe pallets on the game is better than a guy that has no more pallets left and dies. So what you have to do is take the resources of the map and take the overall chase time and then do ratios. Like, if someone was chased for, if the total amount of time a killer was in a chase was 3 minutes and someone was in a chase for 2 of those minutes, that indicates they did an insane amount of work in comparison to the other team. That way, if the killer sucks and chases nobody, they're still not punished because it's based on the ratio. That would be the correct way to do it. Even then, it's still hard to do because certain killers you have to drop pallets earlier, like Clown, you have to drop earlier. So there would have to be killer-specific modifiers. This is why I understand why they didn't want to do this. Now, I'm surprised that after 2 years of working on it, that isn't what they came up with, because it would take 2 years of work to do that. But that would be the correct way to actually automate skill identification in this game. Hooks equal shots in this analogy, then killers with consistent high hooks, high hook counts, and most likely have higher skill. That would be more accurate, I think. Yes. I think, yeah, didn't he talk about that later too? He talked about the actual, like, oh yeah, right here.
That scenario, what I was just talking about.
We have a similar question, not directly similar, but pretty close, from Jeff Philippe, who asks, why don't hooks count towards your rating?
Yeah, this is a great example of what I was just talking about a minute ago, in a specific case that we did consider and look at and think about quite a bit. The thing with counting hooks is that you end up with weird cases that don't make sense when you take it to its extremes.
Isn't that the argument in reverse? Isn't that the argument for only paying attention to kills? If you look at a 4K, you take those extremes without looking at how you got to that conclusion, where the killer got 1 hook the entire match, but then triggered Know-It and then slugged the other 3 and then gets a 4K. Isn't that way more accurate? I feel like he's speaking about the wrong statistic. If the killer got 9 hooks, he didn't just get a win because of Know-It. He busted his ass hooking a shit ton of people that match. It indicates he did a lot more work. That's, like, extremely basic, that the hooks are a bigger indicator of how the actual match went. Because if you just look at the result, it doesn't take into account that the killer got no hooks but then preyed on altruism at the end, or he got Know-It at the end, or someone got bored and wanted more chase and got cocky and then died at the end. But if someone just got 10 hooks in a match, it just means he did good. There's not really any other way other than the survivors are, like, farming or something, but that is a way more niche scenario than someone getting a 4K because of Know-It or something like that. So it doesn't, I feel like he's talking about the wrong thing here.
Say you're a killer who hooked every, I was just talking.
Directly similar, but
I'll repeat it.
Close. From Jeff Philippe, who asks, why don't hooks count towards your rating?
Yeah, this is a great example of what I was just talking about a minute ago, in a specific case that we did consider and look at and think about quite a bit. The thing with counting hooks is that you end up with weird cases that don't make sense when you take it to its extremes.
Doesn't that also not make sense? Because why would you pay attention to the outliers? If they're getting data from this, and why is he mentioning the outliers like they are the defining factor in their decision making? That doesn't make any sense.
Say you're a killer who hooked every survivor twice, but none of them died. If you count those hooks towards your rating, then you can easily end up in a situation where that scenario counts as a win, like moves.
I don't know why he's saying that mockingly. Yes, that should count as a win. If you get 8 hooks and still no one's dead, it indicates you played as nice as possible while still getting the absolute maximum amount of shit. At the very least, it should be like the old system where I believe if you got 8 hooks without any kills, you would safety pip, right? I think that's how it worked. That was like 3 years ago, but 8 hooks, you would safety pip. You would not actually lose that game.
You up the standings, but that feels weird. Did you really win? Should your rating go up and make you face stronger opponents, even though...
No, I think in that scenario, if you get 8 hooks and no kills, your MMR shouldn't go anywhere. It should basically just stay the same. I think that's a pretty, like, that's like a draw. Basically, it keeps going back to the old system. I think that should be a draw. So like what he's saying, like, should you be given a win? No, but you shouldn't be given a loss for that either, because it takes significantly more to do that. Because, like, look, the way you dismantle this as easily as possible. What's harder to do? Get 8 hooks on everybody without killing them? Or pick Bubba, face camp the first guy till he dies, gens get finished, face camp the next guy till he dies? What's harder? According to the current system, that Bubba gets a 2K, that he's better than the guy that gets 8 hooks. That's, you can demolish this in 5 seconds with that example.
Oh, all of the survivors got out alive? That, probably not, right? That's like an obvious moment of like, it doesn't really compute. It also doesn't make sense for the survivors. If you call that a killer win, that would mean the survivors lost, but they all got out alive. So that feels weird to call that a loss.
No, it would be a draw. I don't know why it's so complicated to just understand that would be a draw. It's not that crazy.
On the survivor side, unless you start saying that everybody in that situation wins, and then as soon as you can have everybody in a game winning, you get some really weird math, some really crazy stuff.
Isn't that already happening though with MMR? You can still technically get a 2K and gain MMR, and then the 2 survivors that escape are also gaining MMR, so they're also winning. So that already happens. You already have half the team winning and the killer also winning at the same time. So that already happens. That's the game.
Starts happening really, really fast. So that's part of why we boil it down to kills and escapes as a proxy for good play in the game. It solves all those problems, and it solves a whole bunch of other ones that I'm just not going to get into now.
What is that? What problems does that solve though? 2K is for +0 MMR. It depends on the MMR of the people that you killed. If they have higher MMR, you theoretically would actually gain in that scenario. I just don't understand why it has to be that complicated. Base your MMR on your emblems? Well, then we just go back to the emblem system again. I genuinely think just having the emblem system and refining it a bit more is the best choice that they could have for this game. I think just refining the actual emblem system is the smartest thing they could do. Because the emblem system at least attempted to identify that there are more things going on than just the sacrifice emblem, you know? There are more things than match than just that. It didn't do it very well, but it at least attempted to kind of understand that was happening. And they needed to make a couple of changes, and I think they needed to make some modifiers, like certain killers that have one-shots get less chase on emblem on average, so they would have to gain like a higher modifier to their chase. But, you know, and then certain killers like, you know, Wraith would have a higher modifier too, because they don't chase very much. They, you know, hit and run and they surprise people. That's how Wraith plays. So it's pretty easy to have modifiers based on how the killer's play style is generated, you know, from their design. Thanks, Genesis. So I always thought that would be the best way to do it.
Because I think we have like 1 or 2 other questions to get into.
Yeah, one of the trick.
Do you think they even play their own game? Yeah, I do believe they play their own game. I absolutely believe they do play it. If you play your game in a bubble of people that don't know how to play the game, your opinions are like super warped. And that's not to say that people that don't know how to play games' opinions don't matter, because you have to obviously take into account the new player experience too. It's very important, arguably more important than the veteran experience if you're talking about pure financials and selling the game and keeping people, you know, constantly cycling new players. That's arguably more important. But if you play a lot in a vacuum, you don't really learn much, which is a problem. For 6 years straight, they've always needed to gain knowledge from people that are simply more knowledgeable about them. And the thing is, they used to do that too. I'll share this. I mean, this is like slightly private information, but they used to invite people to behavior. They actually invited people that you guys know that were very good at their respective roles, killer or survivor. They would invite people to test changes that they were making. And I can't I can't discuss really anything because I don't want to like get anyone in trouble. But even when they did that and when they got the information from the good players, they still ignored it. Like the hillbilly thing, I think is the best example. Pretty much no one that they invited there thought the hillbilly thing was good. Pretty much everyone shit on it, and they're like, we're gonna do it anyway. So the sad thing is, even if when they do have the correct information from higher level players, they ignore it anyway. Zubat went once. Yes, he did.
These parts of a system like this is that you need to clear.
Remember that shots lead to our
I just have to
proxies
analyze
for
this again.
skill. In the detail I'm saying, I'm trying to keep this brief, but there's a common misconception that by using just kills and escapes to adjust your MMR, it's ignoring skill in the game. This isn't the truth though. This is false. Kills and escapes are proxies for skill, in that skilled play inherently leads.
Okay, let's boil down that blanket statement. No, I think for killer, it's a lot easier to identify. The amount of hooks you get is a proxy for skill. I think that is fair. Kills, no. The amount of hooks you get, yes, that is a proxy for skill. Now, Survivor, it is more complicated because how do you quantify that? If you escape, that doesn't mean you're good. It just might mean you let your entire team die. But if you die and also get chased a lot and run the killer, that doesn't mean you're bad either. So I understand the complications in identifying Survivor skill way more. That is more complicated. But for killer skill, no, hooks are indisputably a better argument for automating skill. Like it's not even close. Am I going to upload this to YouTube? I might upload this whole thing to YouTube. I do want to make a video about this specific part though, but I'm way too tired to make coherent sentences. So I'm going to sleep first. Chase time could determine skill. Yeah, but like I said, that makes it extremely complicated. Because if you just make it chase time, what if it's the nurse? The nurse doesn't really chase people. Wraith doesn't chase people. You can't make it just based on chase time. Or you can, but it has to be in a ratio that involves the total amount of chase time. So I guess what I suggested would work. Because if you had a nurse and her chases were, an average of 10 seconds, and you had a survivor that lasted 40 seconds in a chase, even though that's not very much time to last in a chase, in relation to how long her overall chases went, it would still indicate you did better than everybody else. So you could do that. The problem is that would mean you'd have to determine MMR at the end of the match after people have left the lobby, and I don't think they have a method of doing that. They don't have like a server-side MMR correction thing. I think it adjusts your value as soon as the match ends or you die. Like if you die, it kicks off your MMR and then that's it. You just go on. I don't think it's taking the whole match into account and then applying it in retrospect. I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. Because from the data mining that I've seen, as soon as you leave the match, your MMR is adjusted. Like it's not waiting for the outcome of the match. It just does it immediately. So, I don't know.
2 kills or escapes. Think about sports, and I'll use hockey as an example because I'm Canadian. You wouldn't say they only count wins when
they said they're looking at taking the overall team's result. That would be good. I think that would be good, but that's just a soon.jpg thing, so whatever.
Placing teams in the standings, but they should also count shots on goal too. A more skilled player takes more shots. And
I still don't understand this argument. So his premise is, again, I'm very sleep deprived, but his premise is that a hockey player that takes more shots on goal is going to be better than someone that takes less shots on goal, right? Is that what he's saying? No, then what is he saying? You have to be able to get to the goal to take the shots. Okay. I know hockey's not a good example. I'm just trying to understand what he's what he's saying. He says only the goals matter. Right. I don't understand. Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. How are people defending that his argument. He's saying there's no nuance in how the goal was achieved and how many attempts it took to get one when determining who won the match, just whether or not they got the goal. But whether or not they won the match is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the outcome. We're talking about the individual skill of the player involved. We're not talking like it doesn't matter who wins. That's the whole problem. We're not talking like if it's going to be called skill-based matchmaking. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. A hockey player who's literally on the bench the entire game because he's now part of the winning team is now he's now a skilled player. It doesn't. Yeah, that's the thing. He's treating it like MMR for the team, but that's not how the system works. The system is individual. Your Survivor MMR is not your team's MMR. It's your individual MMR. So other people doing things for you doesn't mean you're now better. That's the whole point. If your team carries the shit out of you, that doesn't make you good. It just makes the fact that you did win the match, but it's not because of you. It wasn't because you were good. It's because everybody else on your team was good. That's just where we disagree. He thinks outcome equals skill. Well, that's verifiably incorrect. So, I mean, this whole premise is based on an opinion that's incorrect. Right? Like, I don't want to have like a chat echo chamber here that just agrees with me because I'm a big streamer. Is what I'm saying sound? Again, I'm so delirious. I slept 3 hours. I want to make sure what I'm saying is actually sound. I don't want to make an ass out of myself here. Whatever you say, boss. Don't say that. Stop that. At the end of the day, we conclude they spent 1.5 years making a good system, but they decided it was too hard. All right. Let's move on from that. The other point I want to talk about is, let's see if I can find his exact... I want to talk about him saying that the actual system was working, but the matchmaking is not working. I don't remember where exactly he talked about that. Whatever. I mean, I basically remember what he said. Oh, it was just after that? You'd say the win does matter, but it shouldn't be the only factor taken into the account. I don't know, man. I don't agree because we still don't know what a win is. There is no win. It's not still clear what that actually is. Escaping, although it is like the defined thing as like, you know, that's your end goal, I genuinely I don't think that just escaping makes you a winner. But I guess that boils down to opinions at that point then, right? Just like, you know, just face camping two people, it doesn't make you a winner either. I guess that's more opinion based than anything though.
Side, unless I'm not going to get into now because I think we have like one or two other questions.
Actually, coming to Xbox One.
You said it was right after you
Lane's not going.
Different people. Hidden Blade, Lex.
Basically, God, I'm so tired. What was the original thing I was about to say? Oh yeah, so at some point in this video, I don't remember exactly when he said it. He said that our matchmaking system is actually very good at predicting the outcome of a match. Or he said the MMR system is very good at predicting the outcome of a match, which may be true. But the problem is the matchmaking system doesn't make it so that is what actually happens. And he's treating it like those are two separate systems. Like they have a very good MMR system, but they have a bad matchmaking system. But those are separate. So MMR is fine. But they're indisputably linked. If the MMR system accurately depicts things properly, and then you just match people just with random shit, then the entire system doesn't work. That doesn't... It basically just invalidates the first part. If the first part, determining skill, is correct, and then you just ignore the value that is computed from that, what the fuck's the point? It doesn't matter. If their matchmaking is not making it so their system is actually doing what it's supposed to do, then it's not working overall. He said that when it's able to match people accurately, it works, but at a certain point it prioritizes speed over balance. Look, I understand that too, but there needs to be some wiggle room. Like, we don't want to have a situation where we have, like, Dowsey twins waiting 2 hours for a comp team. Obviously, that's too far in one direction. We don't want that. But it shouldn't also be putting, like, Anna getting her first game in with 2,000-hour killers. It shouldn't be doing that either. There needs to be a nice middle ground in between. Because it should not be putting babies against, you know, people that have 1,000 hours or more in the game. And it shouldn't be doing the opposite as well. But obviously, yes, I understand And I prefer the fact that it doesn't work. Like, I actually prefer that it doesn't work, because if it did work, we would probably be waiting in queue times for hours again, which would be awful. So I understand where he's coming from when he says that. But basically, they've admitted they're going to sacrifice the accuracy of the system in order to let people play the game, which I agree with. But it also brings up the point, then what the fuck is the point of the system to begin with? Why did you waste so much time adding this to begin with? There was no reason to do it, because, yeah, obviously that was going to be true always. And although I agree we should not have to wait hours for games, why did you waste time doing it to begin with? It just didn't make any sense. That's how SBMM works in team-based games. Right, it's based on your team, but that's not how it works in this game. They've admitted that's not how it works. It's not based on your team, it's based on you as an individual player, which makes it so complicated. Because it's not a 1v1v1v1v1v1. It's a 4v1. It doesn't... they've even said that word for word, right? They've said it's a 1v1v1v1v1, but that's just not how the game is. It's a team-based game. That doesn't make any sense. MMR relies on matches, and if the matches aren't balanced, then the matchmaking system is ruining MMR. Sure, they hurt each other. They go hand in hand. If one doesn't work, then the other doesn't work. Lose your face, thanks to the 4. Appreciate that. MMR prioritizes queue times over skill, pretty much. Would it be okay if they just change it from SBMM to team skill matchmaking? That would probably be more of an accurate indicator, but then the problem with that is that has its pitfalls too. The whole point is that there shouldn't be an MMR system in this game at all. That's the whole main point. That's the main takeaway. But if you do have it team-based, then you have a whole new slew of problems where instead of people bitching about, their individual MMR, they're going to bitch about their team's MMR. And they're going to say, the only reason my MMR went down is because my team sucked. And then you just have another problem there, and people are still upset. The point is, you shouldn't have any of these systems in this game. It just doesn't work. Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't have team-based MMR with solo queue. I mean, you can. It just leads to a lot of pissed off people. I don't know. I don't think that really is gonna fix anything. Yeah, that happens now. That's the standard of every competitive game. True, every competitive game. This ain't that. This is not a MOBA. This is not that. And I don't want to have the whole argument of, well, if it's a competitive game because you're fighting other players. That's not what we mean when we say competitive game. We mean competitive as in, can be seen as an esport or something like that. That's usually what people mean by competitive. You don't just say, because you're going against another player, that it's competitive. Rocks, paper, scissors is not competitive. Well, I'm sure there probably is competitive rocks, paper, scissors, but you get what I'm saying. That and comp mode. Yeah, the problem is with adding a comp mode, no one would play it. Why would you ever play comp mode in this game? Give me one reason you would ever subject yourself to playing comp mode in this game. That's the problem. Every game is comp mode in this game right now. Why would you want to subject yourself to that? There's no rewards for it. The highest form of this game is the most boring form of it. There's just no reason to do it. Golden cosmetic, there are none. It doesn't exist like that. So you're saying if they had a system where they would give you cosmetics for it, then you would do it? And yet people still play comp in this game? Yeah, but it's widely seen as kind of a joke. Like, no, I don't know. I feel like even comp players don't take it that seriously. They realize it's kind of a joke. They just want to sweat because they find it fun. But they know it's not very, well made. I mean, just go watch any tournament. It's someone getting an early hook, camping them until they die, and then getting another hook, and then every tournament goes in the exact same way. It's really, really uninteresting. So key takeaways from this, I need to sleep on some of the stuff. Key takeaways. This is the whole part that I had just such a huge problem with. This whole section here, where he says that they have a functional system, despite the last stream saying that it's not functional in terms of identifying skill, and then saying that kills are a better indicator than hooks is my two main issues. That's, I think, just objectively wrong. I don't know. Point is, old DBD is way more fun now. Well, that's also an interesting topic of discussion too. Was old DBD more fun, or was it just the fact that less people knew how to play the game why it was more fun? I'd argue old DBD was less fun than it currently is. Unfortunately, people just got better at the game, and they realized how to abuse how not great the game is designed. I think people have a nostalgia factor to it. It's not that the game was more fun, it's that the player base was more fun because people knew how to play less. Yeah, old DBD had way more broken stuff, but it wasn't like it wasn't as prevalent because people didn't know how to abuse it. So it's an interesting way of looking at it. I would say, other than like Circuit Healing, this game is probably in the best state it's ever been, actually balance wise, and yet it doesn't feel like that because people have just simply gotten better. And compared to 3-4 years ago when people were significantly worse, yeah, it's just, I don't know. Circular Healing nerf, it's not really going to change anything. A med kit will go from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. It's a difference of 2 seconds. It's really not that big of a difference. Fact of the matter is, it still gives everybody super speedy self-care. If you have a med kit, it's probably still not going to fix the bug where you retain health kit or med kit speeds when you're healing, even if you have 1% of the bar left. Those are the main issues with it. Not the actual speed. It's not even 10, it's 9.14. Yeah, that's actually more accurate. That's true. So yeah, that 25% nerf doesn't really do much at all. It's still going to be one of the best perks in the game, by far. Like, I'm glad that they have the mindset of nerfing it. It's just, it doesn't really affect anything at all. Without a med kit, it's 24 seconds instead of 16. Yeah, I guess that's without a med kit. The med kit bug happens with toolboxes now. Oh, that's cool. What do you think of Boon of Healing should be nerfed to? I think Circle of Healing needed to be more... They needed to address the actual Boon Totem aspect of it instead. Like, it needed a cooldown. You can only put X number up per match. Make the radius extremely tiny so it's more akin to a healing station, not a giant healing area. Shit like that. I think the actual simple number tweaks on the speed of it was not the correct call. Again, better than nothing, but... Got a 4K match the other day where survivors kick your butt and you only die because they got greedy with hook rescues at the end. Yeah, that's the thing. That's why if you only look at kills, you don't get a picture of what the hell happened in the match. You just get a very small piece of it. I think it is unanimous, like in chat, I think you guys would unanimously agree that hooks are a better indication, at least for killer skill, right? Survivor skill is a bit more complicated, and you could certainly make more of a debate for that, but the amount of hooks you get is significantly more an indicator of I think we all agree with that, right? Okay. As long as we're on the same page there. So why, if we are all on the same page there, every single person here, why does behavior not think that's the case? If everybody in forums and Reddit and streams and Twitter is all saying that, why do they think that's not the case? I'm not saying it's a perfect indicator. Of course not. There's many variables that can go into it that would mean it's not based on skill. I'm just saying it is more of an indicator than skill than kills. Because they don't play their game enough. Even then. Patrick, go stream. Ugh. Because survivors can still escape. Yeah, I think the problem is, yeah, that they just look at it. They just look at it too black and white. They just see escape as winning and killing it. It's the problem with all of their big data. Like, don't get me wrong, big data is useful. Like, big data is really useful for finding correlations in things, but it's not useful for really anything else. Oh, unlucky Patrick. Can't be asked to implement a complex but accurate system. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can do it. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. God, I made way too many MMR videos. Holy shit, talk about something else, mate. Jesus. Oh, fuck it. I have apparently 7,000. I have too many MMR videos. But the idea is that I don't even know. I don't even remember what I was saying because I'm so exhausted. Basically, the MMR system could work. They just needed to account for more variables than they're currently doing. They needed to account for chases and things like that for survivors because that's really the only skillful part of survivor play. And then they also need to account for hooks for killer because that's really the only slightly indicator for killer play. That's pretty much it. Is they potentially adding BT as base kit? Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that. Adding borrowed time as a base kit thing. I have a feeling they're not going to directly add borrowed time. Like, it's just not going to be borrowed time. But they I don't think we... Do I even need to go to the actual clip? Basically, he said... The question was, are BT and DS going to be made base kit? And he said DS is not going to be made base kit like 50 times in a row, indicating heavily that borrowed time will be. So it indicates that they're probably experimenting with some form of borrowed time being base kit. Obviously, it's not going to be the current borrowed time because that would be way too strong. Or if they did that, they would need to give killers something as well, like give them barbecue and chili for free or something like that. Something... I think the idea of adding that as a base kit mechanic is actually not terrible. I'm very much okay with remedying the issue that this game is plagued by, which is solving base grievances with the game with perks. I don't think things like tunneling and camping should be dealt with perks. It should be dealt with base game mechanics. And so if they're trying to get on that path by doing that, I understand that is a good idea. But they need to balance the game around that. I don't think it's okay if they just give everyone borrowed time and then don't do anything for the killer side for like a year, because that's how long they usually... It needs to come out at the same time. They need to... Sure, tell me about something like that, a corrupt base kit or something like that. If they're going to give survivors borrowed time base kit, they need to give killers something at the same time. And I think that would be a really good idea. Like, I actually think that would be great, removing borrowed time or changing borrowed time's effect, because that mechanic that de-incentivizes tunneling is good. Anything that de-incentivizes tunneling and camping is good. Anything that de-incentivizes, just gen rushing like corrupt intervention is good. I think those are good base mechanics to just straight up have in the game without having to need a perk to remedy that situation. I think that'd be great. But I have a feeling what they're going to do is just add borrowed time to survivors and just be like, there you go. You don't have to worry about getting tunneled anymore. If that happens, I see a lot of people getting really pissed off. Yeah, you don't even need the early game collapse. Imagine if they just simply made corrupt intervention base kit. That's it. Corrupt intervention did something else or made it last a little bit longer or added 2 more gens being blocked or whatever. Just something like that. Or even the corrupt intervention base kit would be weaker. So only like 2 gens would be blocked. Just shit like that. That's how you remedy the game's problems without perks. And I think that's a much, much better idea. So I kind of like that they're doing that. I think that's really good. But it needs to happen alongside changes to the game entirely. You can't just give survivors borrowed time for free. But I do like the thought process that they have. Dead Hard being reworked, they talked about. I think he mentioned the iframes. No, he mentioned the distance too.
Can activate regardless of you dodging a hit. Gives it a little bit too much utility beyond what we want Dead Hard to do. So that's another aspect. I don't have anything specific to say about what we're doing there, but those are like the...
Okay, so at least the devs are aware of Dead Hard for distance, but it was assumed.jpg. So what was actually answered in this Q&A? Was anything actually answered? Midget, thank you for the prime. Appreciate that. I don't think there was a single answer. That Cowshed is the worst map. That is true. We finally got confirmation that Fractured Cowshed is in fact the worst map. We all had a feeling it was going to be that, Haddonfield, or like a Baton Preschool, but it's good to know that Fractured Cowshed is in fact the worst map in the game. This is the killer data, which is meaningless. I wanted to see. Well, why do I have to see? Midwich was the best killer map, and then Midwich being the best killer map. I wonder why. I bet Midwich is the best killer map because newer survivors have problems finding gens. Like, you have to take into account that probably 70% of the player base is essentially just new to this game. So finding gens on that map can be a giant pain in the ass. And then once you do find the survivors, the loops on them are not particularly strong. So exit gate proximity is very close too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I can't find gens on that map too. So yeah, I can understand Midwich there. And I can understand Fractured Cowshed being the... I mean, we've been saying that for... for 6 years. Or 5 years, I guess. New game modes, they said no. I'm just going to briefly go through every single question and just see if they actually answered it or not. Kirby, thanks for the 73 months. Appreciate that very much, man. That's a long-ass time. Whew. Switch progression coming? No. Dead Hard be reworked. Soon.jpg. No. 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 Stats. No. 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 I don't know. No. Possibly. No, not telling you. But I'll talk about everything else for 5 minutes. No. No. We have no idea. No. No. I'm gonna listen to this part again. We really like to shit on behavior. I'm literally just recounting the events that happened, man. I'm just questioning whether or not they answered the question. If you think that's shitting on behavior, I'm just literally recounting the events that happened, dude. It's not my fault that they said no to every question. I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? You want me to just lie to you?
A network issue that they're having. You can also make lies more with the match. Isn't...
Oh yeah, here's where he was talking about it.
About something that I
want to like dodge questions, so we want to make a promise from our Japanese
that you see in this case, you know, Iridescent Grade isn't really an indicator of skill or MMR. It's not an indicator from the skill-based matchmaking system. Don't be afraid of those folks with Iridescent Grades showing up. All it means is that they've played a fair bit this month, right? Remember,
see, that's the thing though. If you're playing a week out from rank reset and there's an Iridescent one in your lobby, you should probably be a bit more scared of them than other people because they're a fucking no-life virgin like myself that's playing this game way too much. So they're probably going to be better. So I don't think that you should actually say that. Now, as it gets like a couple of days before rank reset, then yeah, it stops really meaning anything. But I'd say for half of the entire month, grades are indisputably a better indicator of skill than MMR. Because if you have people getting to Iridescent that fast, it at the very least means they play a lot. Now, that doesn't mean they're good, but there's certainly a correlation there. 3 hours every day, that's too much, bro.
13th of every month, everybody goes back down to the bottom. You know, you all start the climb again. So if you play on the 13th or on the 14th, I doubt you'll see too many Iridescents, although I'm sure somebody's going to take that as a challenge. So yeah, in terms of the MMR system itself, and I'm going to be very careful when I say this, and put a lot of caveats here. The MMR system itself, the ratings, is absolutely working well. I'm going to expect the chat to explode in 2 seconds. We've gathered tons and tons of data that show it's really good at predicting match outcomes. The problem, and there is a problem, I am admitting there's problems here, lies more with the matchmaking system itself and the situations where it puts players into a game that it already knows will be imbalanced.
Okay, let's address this topic here. How do you solve that problem? This is a problem, obviously. How do you solve it? There's only one answer here. Pandemic, you got it. You can't solve it. That's an unsolvable problem. The only thing you can do is not have the system to begin with. It's impossible to solve. And they could be the best devs in the world. You just can't solve that. So, get a way higher population, sure. Just quadruple your player base, forehead. No, we're talking about actual possible things that you can do. There's nothing they can actually do to fix that problem. And they talk about this backfill stuff as if that's the main issue. That's not the main issue. I'm sure that is a side issue, but they're treating this backfill issue as if that's going to solve the problem. This has no solution. So if you have a problem, if you have a system that's a problem and the problem has no solution, you get rid of the system, right? That's the only logical thing they can do. They can pretend it's this backfill thing or whatever. They can do whatever they want, but there's no real way to fix that problem. And I don't think they talked about a way to fix it.
You know, matchmaking is always a bit of a balancing act between speed and fairness. You can find matches really, really fast in any matchmaking system, but they will be comically unbalanced and unfair and not fun for the people involved. You can also make all matches extremely balanced, but it'll take hours to find them. It would be really easy for us to say every match is perfectly balanced if y'all were willing to wait for 3 hours to play every single match. That doesn't sound like a good time, though. So, you know, there are places in our system that prioritize speed over fairness right now a little bit too much. And I think one of the prime examples, and likely where a lot of these problems are coming from, is from a concept that we call backfilling. This is when a player quits from a lobby or doesn't manage to connect to the lobby due to a network issue that they're having. So, you know, the lobby where you're seeing all the players before the game actually starts. In this case, when a player doesn't make it in or they disconnect from there, we massively prioritize speed. We're really focused on the fact that you've already waited through.
Even then, that would be what? That would just be one player in the lobby, right? So if a survivor dodges and someone else joins, it's not like the entire match is now fucked. You might just get a single worse survivor, right? Or a single more inaccurately gauged survivor. Technically, it could be a better survivor because it's disregarding matchmaking, right? So it could be a better survivor, but it's still only one person. It's not like, how often do you guys join a lobby and the entire team leaves and an entire new team joins? That like never ever happens. That's so rare. It does happen, but he's acting like if he fixed this backfill issue, it's going to solve the issue. Like entirely, which it just won't. Isn't one weak link enough? It could be a strong link too, though, because it just doesn't work. He admitted there was an issue with speed. That's the thing. He actually, it seems like they are aware of their inevitable fate. They do understand that they've made a system where it does not matter because they're going to have to either make people wait for hours and get an accurate match, or they're going to have to just throw people in with random shit and have queue times that are bearable. Those are the only two outcomes. The better outcome is having unbalanced matches than no matches. So I don't. Then what's the point? You can't fix this. That's not something you can fix. It's impossible. Happens 4 out of 10 games every time you log on. Really? You can go in the past 5 years of me streaming this game. I can count probably on one hand the times the entire team leaves and rejoins. That's crazy how you're getting it that much more frequently than me. That's so weird. Goody, thanks to the 34. I can't believe they said that Perk Tears won't be removed. Yeah, the point that pissed me off about that was... I'll just remember, I believe Peanuts had the counterpoint for not removing Perk Tears. They said, well, we could do that, but, you know, as we keep adding new survivors and new killers, you're still gonna have a lot of shit to add. As if that was a counterpoint. The reasoning behind that makes no sense. So that they said they want to have like to be fair, we don't know what other system they're working on. Maybe they're making it so you can individually select perks and buy them. Maybe if they're doing that, that is the only exception to where that would actually be a preferable way, like a preferable method. If they can make it so you can actually choose what perks you want to buy and choose what perks you want to put on your blood webs, that I think would be preferable than just removing Perk Tears entirely. If they want to not go the random route, I think that would be okay. I just don't think they're going to do that. I don't think that's on their mind. I don't think they would ever do that. So what the fuck are they talking about? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they're saying there's no point in removing Perk Tears because they're going to keep adding new perks, and it makes no sense. They're saying they're not going to do that because they keep adding more perks, but that would just make the usefulness of removing Perk Tears even greater. In fact, the more perks they add, the bigger impact having less Perk Tears actually matters. If there's only 5 perks in the game, removing Perk Tears doesn't really matter. But if there's 500 perks in the game, removing Perk Tears is 1,500 versus 15, you know? It's so much bigger of a difference. So it makes no sense. Yeah, and that also assumes, like, you know how... That's a good point, Flipper, like, it's putting it into words properly. If they remove perk tiers, it will remove 66% of perks that you have to buy, right? Which is, like, over 100, right? That's got to be over 100. So you have that, and then you have 6 perks every 3 months that keep getting added. You would have to... What is that? 6 times 4, 24... You would have to have this for 4 more years. 4 more years of perks for that to actually equal the amount that you would be saving. Sometimes it's 9. I guess there's a few exceptions. Sometimes they have 2 survivors, but that's very uncommon. But yeah, it just that doesn't make sense. Did they address the cheaters in this game at all? I mean, they addressed it. They just everything in here was basically a non-answer. I understand the cheater non-answer, though. If there's one thing I will defend them on from this whole Q&A, it's the cheater thing. You don't want to say, hey, we're making it so you can't go X speed now, because then the cheaters will find a way around that. You can't specifically talk about what vulnerabilities you're patching. You just have to be very vague with it. So that's one thing I understand them being vague behind. That's totally fine. Keeping the grind is mandatory. The more you play, the bigger chance of developing an addiction. If you remove perk tiers, there is still a giant grind. There is still an insane grind, even if you remove perk tiers. You will still probably never get everything. So I don't think that's an issue. There will still be plenty of a grind. Dark Tigers, thanks for the 50. The grind is so big it doesn't matter. Yeah, there are so many things to get. You could have 0 perk tiers. There's just so many killers and so many survivors that you have to level to even get the teachables to put those perks on other blood webs. Like, it's not even close. Oh no, Patrick. Oh no. I'll be uploading this. I'll probably upload this whole thing, but I do want to, like, refine the discussion about the whole MMR thing that they said. Because I just don't understand how the entire community can agree that hooks are better, an indicator, and then they just ignore everybody and just only look at the kills. I just don't get it. Like, we've been saying that for so long. That's why we all preferred for killer the old system where it actually took your hooks into account. And that was great. Because they like face camping. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, that's a good point. It's like they want to encourage the unfun gameplay. New PoE League was... Oh, the name was revealed. Whatever. I just don't get it. They think that's the Shroud of the Core DVD's gameplay. I guess. Yeah, I would love that stat too. Like a hook percentage or a hook state counter or something like that for each killer. That would be awesome. That would be actual useful data, I think. The kill data is almost meaningless. No, the DBD community entirely, Ocelot. I cannot think of a single person that disagrees with the fact that hooks are a better indicator of how the match went than kills. I can't think of a single... I have never seen somebody say the opposite of that, other than the devs. Pinhead has the highest kill rate at the moment. Yeah, like I said, it makes sense. Because new players don't know how to deal with the box, so they're constantly just slowed down the entire time. Tab out McLean. What about him? How do you balance hooks with survivors also escaping? Do survivors get less MMR in that case? No. The hook thing would just be for killer MMR. The hook thing would have nothing to do with survivor MMR. Survivor MMR, like I said, is far more complicated. You have to account for a lot more things to actually get an accurate depiction of skill. But like I said, none of this even matters. None of this matters. Because even if we take them at face value, when they said that their system is working and it's identifying skill perfectly, it perfectly predicts the outcome of a match, which is bullshit, but let's pretend that's true. It doesn't matter because the matchmaking system doesn't work to begin with. So it doesn't even match you with the correct things you're supposed to be with. So None of this matters. Buddy! What the fuck, bro? Why'd you knock that down? Why'd you knock that down? Over here. Ugh. Did Otch change his opinion about kills greater than hooks? I never watched that whole debate. What was Otz's opinion on it? Did Ox? Jesus, I'm so tired. Did Otz actually think that kills were a better indicator of a result than hooks? I feel like we're having a separate argument. I don't think he said that. Ugh. He didn't say that. I can't imagine he did, because Otz is not stupid. Otz said he thinks hooks are more skillful. He just didn't want to bounce around them. Okay. That makes more sense. Yeah, I cannot imagine that he would think that hooks are less important than kills. He said some playstyles get less hooks. Oh, okay. So I guess I understand that side of the argument. Like if you're playing Oni and you get a super good power usage and you kill everybody, but they're only hooked a single time. Like he's saying, should that indicate that the killer played badly because he only got 4 hooks? I can understand that to some extent. The way we see it, we're doomed, yeah. The game has so many variables and it'd be nice for them to admit that. Yeah, I know. I wish they addressed that. I think that's the only way to... Well, again, like, all this doesn't matter. Like, we can come up with the best MMR system in the world, but as they self-admitted, their matchmaking system is making it so it doesn't matter what your result is. You're not going to get matched with people of your MMR anyway. So it doesn't matter. And that will probably never be the case because they're always going to prioritize queue times over the actual accuracy of the match. So all this discussion that we're having about MMR and being accurate or inaccurate doesn't matter. It's just meaningless because it's not ever, they're never going to prioritize accuracy over queue times because that would kill their game. So what's the point? What's the point of even discussing it? What's the point of even trying to refine the MMR system to be more accurate? There is no point because it's never going to prioritize skill over queue times because that would kill their game. So the whole point is the system should never have been made, like we've been saying for years and years. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the 3 months, man. What's the point of the SBM system? There is none. As they basically said in a nutshell, they have a system that in theory works, but it cannot be applicable to the real world because they can't have matchmaking queues be that long, therefore it's useless. They pretty much just admitted that there's no point into actually having it because it's an unsolvable problem. MMR is here to make the new players spend more money. Yeah, it doesn't even work, dude. Like I said, I've talked about Otz instructing Anna, and her very first game of Survivor, she went against a killer for 2,000 hours. It doesn't. It's not making new player experiences better either. Big buddy cat jam IRL. Kind of do it. Now it just looks like he's sucking a dick. I don't want to do that, buddy. No sucking dicks for Buddy. Buddy's a good boy. MMR is for mid-MMR players. Yeah, what does that even mean, though? I feel like it widens the bands so much that everybody can play at mid and high MMR. Like, if you have 1900 MMR, you probably match with 1400 people if you're in queue long enough. Like, it just doesn't matter. Now, was that an issue of not enough players? I think what it actually is, it's an imbalance of players. Because when we first data mined MMR, at high MMR, there were basically only killers. There were way too many killers at high MMR, which indicates it was harder for survivors to get there. But now that they've actually gotten there, it's switched in reverse. And even if there are more survivor players, it didn't matter beforehand because there were more killer players at high MMR, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But now that it's switched, now the fact that there are way more survivors than killers is actually becoming irrelevant, and now queue times are just too long. So I think the only way to actually solve their issue with MMR is somehow getting a lot more killers to play the game, which they're probably not going to do. So Toby's got a pretty different opinion. I mean, yeah, he had like a 45-minute video. That's a little too long for me to watch, but can you summarize what his opinion is? Because I value his opinion pretty highly. To you, the ratio of survivor killers 1-to-1. Yeah, that's not good. It shouldn't be that. I think they didn't want to reveal the survivor killer population ratio because too many killers have left the game recently. Yeah, probably. Yeah, Withern, that'll be nice. Maybe just watch Tofu's video now. I'm not going to watch a 40-minute video. Sorry. It was a bit shorter. I'd watch it, but that's a little too long. Tofu really likes MMR. Well, the thing is, I like this MMR system too. Do you know why? Because it doesn't work. I don't think anyone wants a functional MMR system. I can't imagine Tofu disagrees with me. We agree on most stuff. The only reason that the system, I don't have a big problem with it is because it just doesn't work. If it worked, I'd have a problem with it, I think. Tofu wants a functional MMR system. See, I feel like I'm Blizzard now, but I don't think he does. Because he wouldn't be able to stream the game anymore. Because he's very good. And he would just wait in queue for 2 hours. He wouldn't be able to play the game. Maybe in terms of balance, that'd be more fair, but as a streamer, it would kill his channel. You don't actually want that. Toby said the MMR is not working for him at all. Yeah, that's why I think I don't have a problem with it, because it's not working. If it started working and everyone on high MMR had to wait 2 hours every match, the game would die. Or it wouldn't die, just there would be no one streaming the game. It was that he wants an actual functional system. See, I don't know, man. I don't want to presume to know what he's actually meaning by that, but I don't think you actually do want a functional system, because if it was functional, very good killers like himself would have to wait his entire stream to play one match. So again, as a DVD player, I'm sure he would love that. As a streamer, it would destroy his channel. It would be awful. It would destroy all of our channels. It would be terrible. He doesn't want to stomp bad players. I can respect that immensely. That's totally fine. But if the alternative is you cannot play the game at all, I'm going to take stomping on new players occasionally. I think it's the lesser of two evils. Yeah, exactly, Neru. Like, there wouldn't be that. I think it's harder to get high MMR as Survivor than it is for Killer. And if you're doing that, you're probably in a 4-man, which means the pool is like you're only going to beat that. So you would have to wait even longer to get matched with that. Like, it would just, I don't know. Wooden's considering the effects of a functional MMR system when having queues and starts to slowing the point of the system. Okay, well that's a way too idealistic view of looking at it. Yeah, in theory, yeah, it'd be great if everything was an accurately match-made game, but that's impossible. So I mean, it's possible. It would just kill the game. Maybe he just wants to keep the queue times, just make MMR based on more things, not just the driving. Yeah, that's the thing, though. Like I said, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm realizing this myself. I keep suggesting better ways to have an MMR system, but by their own admission, if the matchmaking system doesn't work, it doesn't matter what value is spit out by the MMR system. You could have 1 MMR or 8 trillion MMR. If you get put in the same game, no matter what, it doesn't matter how accurate the system is. So all these suggestions we have for fixing the MMR system, they don't actually matter in the long run. Because really the issue comes down to there is just not enough killer players for there to be an accurate system. I think that's fair to say, right? Like, as long as there's a giant imbalance in the player base, it just, you can't do it. Yeah, for it, I noticed that too. I noticed when when MMR first started, I had more challenging games more frequently. You know why that's the case? Because it's harder for survive. I know exactly why that's the case. You know why MMRs appeared to work in the beginning and we were getting better survivors at the start? It's because we got high MMR pretty quickly because it's easier to get high MMR on Killer than it is on Survivor. So we got to high MMR quickly, and the only people that could possibly match that level in that amount of time were extremely good teams and 4-mans and like really, really good players. That's like the only people that could get there that fast. But now everyone has basically just slowly risen up to that same point, that same 1900 soft cap, and now we're back to just old Ren rank matchmaking again. So the only reason it appeared good is because it was not well designed and it was too easy for Killer to gain MMR and too hard for Survivor to gain MMR. Now that over time that's equalized, we're back to the same shit we used to be at. And that's why I don't have a problem with it anymore, because it's just, it doesn't work. So it's just basically the old thing again. Why not just rank reset everyone? Well, then we're just literally the old system again. When we talk about it, the more I miss the old system. Yeah, I agree. Game is boring between 1 AM and 5 AM. I don't think I've ever played the game then. Hey. But yeah, I think that's been like that always, right? I think late night players have always been on average worse. I've heard that from a lot of people. I never played there myself, but I've heard that from a lot of people. That was before MMR too. Just for some reason, people are just worse like late at night. The fuck? Did you just install an update without my... All right. It wasn't this bad? I don't really notice that. Oh, I guess I don't play at that time, regardless, so... I mean, it would make sense, because at late night, there's even less players, so it's even wider of a matchmaking thing. It would make sense, right? Because the longer the Survivor queue times, the less accurate the match is going to be. But, bottom line, what I've learned from this is that this is not even really an MMR issue anymore. This is a imbalance of roles issue. That's what I've realized after watching this. This is actually not an issue with MMR. It's not an issue with the matchmaking. It's an issue with the fact that there are not enough players of one side, which is why they probably did not want to actually comment on the ratios that there currently are. He dodged that question like fucking Neo. He just did not say what the actual ratio was. And I think the issue is that there's not enough killers, which I do believe now. You know, the player base has not gone down that much, but if all the players that did leave the game were killers, it's going to create this imbalance to where no matter how accurate your matchmaking is, it won't matter because you have to prioritize queue time. So this really does come down to, it's not an MMR issue anymore. It's actually just a player imbalance issue. There's not enough killers. And if there's not enough killers, queue times are too long. Queue times too long. Matchmaking queues expanded. Thus, it throws the entire system out the window, and it's pointless. How do you bring killer players back then? I don't know, man. That's a good question. Do a lot of stuff. Yeah, actually fix circle of healing. Fix the main problems killers have. I mean, I could go into that for hours. There's many things they need to fix. Map design being probably the most important part. Early game pressure being basically impossible for killer. You know, things like Dead Hard and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that you can do that would make killers want to come back. The reason for killers leaving? Circle of Healing was a pretty big one. Extremely annoying perk to go against. People are upset with MMR, even though I believe it's more a placebo than anything. Because as they said themselves, the system's not even working. So it's entirely MMR's fault. It's just the game itself. I think the biggest issue in the game is map design. It's always been map design. It's very rare you complain about a match on like Wrecker's Yard or something like that. Or like Coal Tower or something like that. It's pretty rare you see complaints about the game on those maps. I think maps are the biggest variable in perceived imbalance in this game. It's how people can both be right and wrong when they say the game is balanced or imbalanced. Because of, one guy can get Coal Tower, do fine. And then one guy can get Red Forest and a gen's done before he can even walk to the other side of the map. And they're in the same game and you have no way of knowing what you're going to get. I firmly believe shrinking maps is one of the simplest things they can do that would just blanket fix so many problems. Like, so many problems just making maps smaller. Like, if every map was like Wrecker's Yard size, I think the game would be remarkably balanced. Because you can't hold W if you run into a wall of the map. That's like the biggest problem with that. Is that, holding W is so strong, you hold W and then you start looping just as the killer gets to you, and it wastes 20 seconds of time every single time. If the map is small, you can't do that. Wouldn't that reduce the distance between tiles and pallets? Yes, that's okay. See, that's a really interesting point that you can actually bring up. It's not like, what do you think is better? Having like 5 god pallets within 5 feet of each other, like a ridiculously broken setup, like how'd this even spawn? There's 5 god pallets right next to each other. Is that better? Or is it better when there's a god pallet here and then 20 meters away, another god pallet, and then 20 meters away, another god pallet? The better scenario for Survivor is when they're spread out. If you have 5 god pallets in a tiny little area, you can get through that shit pretty fast. But if they have 20 seconds of holding forward in between each of the tiles, then it's a giant problem. So if the tiles got more compressed and there was more of them in a small area, that wouldn't really matter. That's like okay. Because the distance, like when you have perfectly equidistant loops, that's when it's a fucking nightmare. If you have 2 things right next to each other, it's not that big of a deal. If 2 junk tiles next to each other is whatever. You're going to run around them once, break it, run around them once, break it. But when you have like a junk tile and then 15 meters away is a jungle gym, and then 15 meters away is shack, and then 15 meters away is something else. That is why Fractured Cowshed is the worst map in the game, because that's exactly what the map is. It's loops that are perfectly equidistant from each other that chain into each other endlessly. That's why it's the worst map in the game, as apparently verified by the devs now, because the entire map is basically a connected loop to where there's just enough space in between for the survivor to not get hit, but just enough to where it's a lot of holding W in between the loops. So you just chain the entire map together. That's why it's so broken. I think it depends on the killer, Nocturne. Certain killers like Demogorgon and Nemesis can shit on the game, but certain killers like, Wraith that have no way of dealing with safe pallets, it's not exactly good for them. Like Suffocation Pit, all the tiles are in the middle. Yeah, think about like that's a good example. Suffocation Pit. If you chase someone in the middle, it's rough because there's a lot of stuff right connected to each other. But usually the outskirts of that map are not very strong. It's like if you have a bunch of stuff that's just congealed in the center, it's not that big of a deal because as long as you can just sort of avoid chasing people in that area as much as you can, then it's not a big deal. But if you have giant like dead zones on the sides and stuff, Saloon is like that as well. You just don't chase people into the main building. You let them do the generator up there first. You just never go up there. That's probably the easiest way to win on Dead Dog is just don't ever chase in the main building ever under any circumstance, unless it's like the last survivor or something like that, where you have nothing better to do. My phone just auto-updated. I don't know why I did that. Yeah, Warmish. I mean, Shelter Woods is an argument like on the other side. That map is probably too killer-sided. Sometimes that map is just giant dead zones. That's not good either. What do you think you're going to do to Legion? I don't know. It's soon.jpg. Everything is just soon.jpg. I don't understand the point of why they do these Q&As when they don't have any answers. Like, wouldn't you want to save the Q&A for like a couple months from now when you do have answers? Like, this is what we're planning to do with Legion. This is what we're planning to do. Like, why would you just I don't understand why they do Q&As when they have no answers for it. Doesn't make any sense. Like, we're not entitled to you doing them. I appreciate it and stuff like that, but we're not entitled to you doing them. So if you have no answers for it, why waste time doing it? Hey, Chonkabean. All right. Kind of like the roadmap. Yeah, they don't follow their own roadmaps, though, so roadmaps are pointless. Go to bed. I will be going to bed shortly. She's just like Gigi. What, a fat bitch? Oh, this is a heckin' chunk. Look at her stomach. Look at her stomach. She is such a chunk. All right. Stream tonight? I don't know, man. I'm gonna go sleep for 4 hours, maybe, if I wake up and I feel like playing. Probably not. I said this was gonna be my stream of the day because my sleep is so fucked today. So probably not, but maybe. How much does she weigh? She weighs 12.2 pounds. She's supposed to weigh 11 pounds. So she is a pound overweight. I think it's Revert Legion 1.0 Legion. Oh my god, please no. Alrighty though, I think that is it, guys. That has been an extremely impactful and eventful Q&A. I'll probably just upload this whole thing just as a video, but I do want to make specific discussions about the actual arguments that Patrick said about hooks and stuff like that, because, God, I rant about that for hours. But that is it for me, guys. I'm going to go relax, try to get some sleep, and catch up on the Z's. That is it for me.